on Candid Camera. Remember that?
Hey, John.
Shane, the letter in support from Ground Zero wasn't in the packets. Miss Donna just brought it to me.
I seen it in the email though. Wasn't it in the email?
Gosh, I don't remember.
That's got to be yours. I believe this is mine right here.
Okay.
You going with him, Casey? I was like, you going with him, Casey, or what?
I don't realize it.
You firefighters, I don't understand, but okay.
I got, make sure he's good. How's it going?
Good.
You sitting in it?
I am until Malcolm gets here. And I'm out. Fast as I can.
Still don't feel like we got the airplane. Still cool hitting you?
A little bit, yeah.
Better than it was, huh?
We're up on YouTube.
Did you hear me out there?
Appreciate you.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, because you're making 2,700. I guess it was 15,000.
Pretty
y'all?
Not much. What's up with you?
Living the dream.
Mr. Burke, how you doing today?
Oh, we got the A team from Harrison County.
He's not here. They're not here. They're in Colorado, but they're watching on YouTube. If they have any communication, or they have any questions, Sean
So I saw on the
can
internet,
text, email them.
Shane, you
and
won a
get
major
immediate
award,
response.
national award for safety.
It's American Short Line Association. They give, you go without any report for a year, they give you a,
Yeah, but if they give you a pin, I'll be wearing a pin.
We can't get that at our plant. We can't get that a year. Jeremy, what national award you get?
I haven't got one yet.
What
Yeah.
you get?
I was in South Mississippi Living magazine in the back of the page a few months ago.
Look, if they send you them emails that who's who,
yeah.
that's spam. Delete it.
Just write them a letter. Seriously.
You ready, man?
Hey, good evening, guys. If y'all would please stand and join us in Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In a moment of silent prayer. All right, thank you.
Kim, is this one to sign there? Can you sign your name? She's asked me to sign it. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, we'll call roll. Ward 1, Alderman Mr. Burke is present. Ward 2, Alderman Mr. Richardson is present. Ward 3, Alderman Mr. LaFontaine is present. Ward 4, Alderman Mr. Piazza is present. And sitting in for Malcolm tonight is Mr. Damian Holcomb, City Clerk, Ms. Fayard, and myself. If y'all don't mind, I'm gonna skip over number 4. I'm gonna go to Alderman's comments, then I'll come back to mine, if you don't mind. I'm waiting on Mr. Lonnie to get here. Ward 1, comments?
I guess I had a question. I guess I had an email, like week and a half ago, on a, not this past weekend, the weekend before. Public Works is doing a great job digging out ditches, but on Gladstone, I think the machine cut one of the driveways. Like, digging on Gladstone. I don't know if you, it was in the email. I'll go resend the email.
Is it new construction?
No, it was from us digging the ditch or whatever else, and I think it just cracked the driveway in the apron.
Yeah, I
I
seen
mean,
it.
it's one of the, I don't know if you could see about getting to that, and, oh shoot, what was my, I might have to come back. I yield the well right now. I think I might have one more thing.
All right, you can come back. And Bo, I'll get with you on that driveway, because I got those pictures too. Ward 2, Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, I just have one thing. I don't know if everyone may or may not be aware of Mr. Richard Thompson, our utility supervisor, is battling cancer right now. And August 13th, we will be doing a fundraiser benefit luncheon. Myself, Chief Pendergrass, and some of his team will be cooking fish and jambalaya. And we're going to have chicken, red beans, all at $10 a plate. It's going to be at 11 o'clock, starting on August 13th at MLK Park on Derelict. And my wife has some flyers that she's going to hand out for everyone to, anyone that can make would greatly be appreciated. That's all I have.
All right, sir, thank you, Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yeah, the only thing I have, Mayor, is, do we have a budget schedule set yet? We're getting into August, and, I
It's
know
not-
last meeting we discussed doing some amendments to the
Yeah,
current budget, so.
Kimberly can answer that. She's actually been working really hard on
I
it.
have the expense side for the amendments ready for us to meet. I'm working on the income side now because nothing has been posted. So I'm going through, making sure everything's posted and balanced, and hopefully we can take from that side, and not hit our reserves.
Okay, and then I think we have to have 2 weeks prior to the September 15th deadline, public notice and stuff.
That's
So-
right.
So when are we looking at, having
Um,
budget meetings?
Yeah,
I think this is gonna be a tough budget
It
with,
is.
I mean, 'cause everything's going up the way it has, and,
yeah, I was shooting for like mid-August, once we can throw the, I guess, the amendment and put that to bed, and then start meeting with everybody for mid-August and hopefully get you guys something, toward the end of August. Does that sound good?
I think we need to check though with the Secretary of State and make sure,
Yeah.
because we may have to meet, we may have to put it in the paper before. We may have to
That's
push
right.
it up, we may have to work both of them at the same time.
Yeah, we can do that, whatever you need to do.
Because I have the amendment ready for all of us to get together and go over it. I will with the income side, probably in another day, 2 days at the max.
Been working really hard on it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
speaking of that, and I guess, would we have to put in, we'd have to put something in the paper for August 31st, correct?
For the
Because
amendment.
no, but for the
For
the
for
budget,
actual
because
budget.
September 5th is a Thursday, and so August 35th, something's gonna have to be published.
Yes.
Published. I mean 31st.
That's all
Is
I
that
have,
it?
Mayor, thank you.
All right, sir, thank you. Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yeah, man, do we have an update on, Cure Waveland cutoff, as to where we at with that?
Well, I can tell you what, a little bit I know. We have about, Bo, do you know the amount, or Kimberly, that we have in? No, the amount that we have in road and bridge funds is about $170-something thousand. We have, how much left in that? Because John Stubbs still left and took another job.
1.2, I mean, 120, I think
Yeah, something like
120,000
that.
left or so.
And so I had asked,
Yeah.
I've been calling the board of supervisors, and they said they have no money left in their paving. So it's a $1.7 million project if we tear it all the way up and do it all over again. So that's what, once we put all these funds together, I still don't think we're gonna have near about that. So then we gotta decide how we're gonna approach it.
Well, the
It's not a
problem,
state aid road?
No.
Okay.
the problem is if you just go pave it,
You're gonna
you
have
know
the
you
same
have
thing all over again.
subsurface issues. Within
Yeah.
3-4 years, you're gonna be looking at the same problem.
Exactly. And with the water lines, the huge water lines running right down the middle of the road, or one lane rather, these heavy trucks are just wreaking havoc. So, y'all might want to look at making that
No truck?
a no-through truck route. However, if we do that, I don't believe, and Damon, you may can answer this, or Malcolm, but, I think we have to do all the roads we wanna do at one time. Now, if I'm going back on my memory from what Rachel told us. So, I mean, I think that's gonna be a problem for the truckers. They gotta go all the way down 603 to
Well,
Highway 90, but that's,
Buy the
it's
crawl.
built better for that.
Yeah, there you go. Buy the crawl.
Yeah, but I'll get a number on how much we have altogether here real soon.
okay, thank you. That's all.
And
Right.
I remember, I saw my note. Did we get the Veterans Memorial published bid?
No, sir.
And you're waiting on that advertisement?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, nothing else? Is that it, Jeremy?
And that was, I guess, Monday's the deadline, so if you can get it from the attorney, I don't know if y'all could work on it, call him first thing in the morning, but been waiting for it for 2 months.
Yep, I'll certainly pass that along. Let's go to public comments, and we'll come back to mine. I'm still waiting on Mr. Lonnie. Thank you, ma'am. All right, Mr. Harris.
Good evening. Clarence
Evening, sir.
Harris, a resident of Waveland. And I just want to acknowledge and congratulate the city of Waveland and the Waveland Police Chief and Waveland Department for hosting a multiple agent active shooting level at Waveland Elementary on last Tuesday. And I think that was a wonderful thing. At least we was proactive. They're getting some training, and it helps the citizens to know that we are prepared in case. And we pray that nothing ever happened, but at least we took the initiative to start that. I'd like to thank the city and the police department for that.
Ms. Clarence, thank you. I think that's really important. And I have to say, I'm really, really proud of our law enforcement, and firemen too. But, for doing that, because, a lot of our children go to these schools. And I know for me, for one, having a 10-year-old, I want to know he's safe when he leaves my house. And so that means the world to me. So thank you for that. Ms. McComb?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Ladybug.
Brenda McComb, resident of Waveland. I just wanted to mention to all the political candidates for Waveland this year, I sent out emails to several of y'all. We're having the street fair on the 4th of September. And any candidate who would like a free space for your tent, for campaign tent, please see me. I'll be happy to email you the application, and but you do have to have the application filled out before you can set up on the street. Okay? Thank y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. All right, and Ms. Gamble?
I have, Rhonda Gamble. I have 3 items tonight that I want to talk to you about. The first is the grass cutting contract. In my opinion, this grass cutting contract is extremely contractor friendly. I had real high hopes when we did this contract that it would help with some of the issues, the efficiency and the cost of what was happening with the grass cutting. However, since that time, I can see that we're not getting what we're paying for. The contract states very specifically, right-of-way work in wards 1 through 4 to include edging, blowing, weed eating, spraying all poles and signage en route where applicable. All ditch mowing will require at least 1 pass on the front, back, and center of the ditch. With the exception of Central Avenue, Ward 1 has only been cut twice. Only with weed eaters. There has never been a mower on anything other than main thoroughfares. They do it on Nicholson Avenue when they did cut Nicholson Avenue, and they did it on Central Avenue. No other street, other than the main thoroughfares, has been cut with anything but a weed eater, and it's hit and miss. So they'll cut one side of the ditch with the weed eater, then they'll skip a block, or they'll do one side and won't do the other side, or they'll do the outside and won't do the opposite side of the ditch. It's very specific in the contract what their duties are, what they're required to do. These people that are cutting the wards are contractors to the contractor. They're not employees of the contractor. So they have to have their own weed eater. They have to have their own transportation and their own gas. they're putting the weed eaters in the back of a sedan, hanging out the trunk, and they're going from neighborhood to neighborhood. No signage, nobody knows who they are. They show up and they're just weed eating sporadically. That's horribly inefficient, to say the least. So I think it's safe to say that the three three busiest, I guess I should say, streets in Waveland are Waveland Avenue, Old Spanish Trail, and Nicholson Avenue. In the contract, the only one of those streets that is set for 22 cuts a year is Waveland Avenue. Not Nicholson Avenue, not Old Spanish Trail. Old Spanish Trail and Nicholson Avenue get 8 cuts a year. Waveland Avenue gets 22. That doesn't make sense to me, especially with Nicholson Avenue, because I'm willing to bet you if we put traffic count out there, I'm willing to bet you Old Spanish Trail would be number 1 and Nicholson would be number 2. Just saying. I know that y'all have had a meeting with the contractor about deficiencies. However, the contract specifically states that the deficiencies have to be in writing, and I think that we need to get together with each ward and find out what all the deficiencies actually are and put it in writing. He's got 30 days to justify it. We're paying him over $17,000 a month to do the grass cutting, and I'm telling you, if we're not cutting our own grass, it looks like hell, just honestly. There are places in Ward 1, since I've been walking Ward 1, that I'm not kidding you, and I'm short, the grass is up to my waist in the ditches in some areas. That's just ridiculous. And I'm willing to argue that those ditches have never been cut, ever. Not since this contract started. So I recommend, I suggest that whoever, y'all get together and let's write down all the deficiencies and give it to him in writing. I know we're stuck with this contract until the end of the term, but we need to start looking more seriously at that contract and at what we're getting for the money that we're paying. Because honestly, I don't think we're saving any money. I know that Bo has had to have the parks cut a couple of times by the city. And I know we're not deducting that from this guy's contract because he's supposed to do 18 cuts on all the parks and everything every year. That hadn't been happening. So please, let's do a complete list of all the deficiencies and deal with that, if you will. All right, number 2 is Ladner Street. Ladner Street from Highway 90 to the stop sign at Gladstone, there is no speed limit sign coming off the highway. So when they come, I was there the other day, I saw Jeremy. I was there the other day, and I'm telling you, everybody that came off that highway, within the first 100 feet of coming off that highway, they had to be doing 40 miles an hour. There isn't a speed limit sign on that street until you get to the 3rd block. You go past the stop sign at Gladstone before you ever see a speed limit sign. So I think if you can, please put a speed limit sign coming off of Highway 90, and maybe put our radar, our mobile radar trailer there to kind of slow people down a little bit. The last thing that I have to ask you about is the paving project. On July 20th, we approved the payment, $1,030,833.64 to Huey Stockstill. Not a single word was mentioned about where we are on that contract. So I have a couple of questions. I'll ask the questions, I'll sit down and y'all can answer them. The number one question is, are we 100% complete? And secondly, are we satisfied with all the work that's been done? In particular, the roller coaster that we call Central Avenue between Coleman Avenue and Nicholson, the patchwork that's been done. So those are my questions with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rhonda. All right, Bo, I have to look to you to answer the first question, is where are we at with the paving? Is anybody here from Compton that can answer that? Oh, Devin? I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there, buddy. Would you come up? Can you,
Wait, get that first.
Before John Studd still left, he said, excuse me, that it was 100% complete. The only thing we had left was the striping on Old Spanish Trail, and that's been completed.
and so Central was not a part of that.
Central was not part of
Right.
the of that, because we didn't have the money for it. It cost a lot of money.
Thank you, Bo.
Yeah, I believe the project's complete, but with John moving out, we're putting new people on his projects, but he left on really good terms, so I'll be happy
Yeah.
to follow up on everything. But I believe all the work is complete. There is some final closeout documents that need to be done, though.
I want to say, and I guess if anybody else remembers correctly, Central Avenue wasn't in there because it's a different way.
It was grinding.
Grinding
That's right.
instead of, so it was gonna drive up the price. That's why it was gonna be
Exactly.
the
And
first
Central,
phase, first phase, kill
Waveland
cutoff.
Avenue.
Avenue.
Avenue to be milled.
Yeah, kill cutoff just because it was a different.
yeah. So maybe I can meet with you at some point and we can look at
Yeah, for
what's
sure.
the options on Waveland cutoff, because we're not gonna have the $1.7 million left over.
But yeah, we'd be happy to set something up.
Okay, I'll get with you.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
Devin, thank you. Ms. Brown, does that answer? Good. All right, so, Mr. Lonnie Falgo,
Are we going to mayor's report?
this is, I'm going back up to the mayor's report. And I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to sanction Coleman Avenue Labor Day event as a City of Waveland event and authorize Ms. McComb to act as a representative for the city to prevent, for pre-event planning, and during the event. Can I get a motion in a second?
I'll give a motion.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion on that? And Mr. Falger is gonna have something on the, after we vote this. And this is for A under my comments. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Lonnie. Look, you've
Thank you.
been a great help to me, so I appreciate you being here.
It's not a problem. Sorry for being late. Have a very sick wife at the moment. First of all, I'd like to echo, I've met with the mayor on quite a few occasions. I've met with Miss Brenda McComb on what y'all planning to do. I think some of y'all, and Bobby, I think you're familiar, we've been trying to do a concert on Coleman with the mayor for about 2-3 years now, and we have received some funds from the Visit Mississippi Authority, which is the Tourism Bureau out of Jackson. They had gave me $2,000 3 years ago to give it to y'all to use, and with COVID and et cetera, and what we've been through. So the mayor had spoke with me the other day, and I went back and researched, and after meeting with Ms. McComb, I'd like to donate this contract and this grant in the amount of $2,000 to provide the bands for the Labor Day thing at no cost to the city. It'll be totally handled by the grant through Alice Mosley Museum. And then we've already met with Ms. Brenda, and we're looking at bands, and I'll be more than happy to donate it to y'all. I just need y'all to accept the $2,000 donation of a concert on Coleman to coincide with the Labor Day event. That's the main reason I'm here, with the first thing, Mr. Mayor.
Ms.
So
Lyon, thank you. I know you've been trying to do this, and I certainly appreciate the money. I know Miss Brenda, in talking to her the other day, she was happy to get it as well. So, can I get a motion to accept the $2,000 donation?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll vote. Ward 1, Mr. Burke?
Oh, one quick. So is this money gonna go to Waveland, or is this gonna be ran through the foundation? Like, what's the
No,
quickest
this
way?
is gonna be totally paid for, and the contracts will be given and written through Alice Mosey, through Visit Mississippi.
So y'all are just.
We
it's not-
handle everything, all y'all do is accept it.
We don't have to pay for the money, y'all are
No,
gonna.
no, we
do
pay the
it.
bands directly, and we just donate the time. What I do is I have a contract from Visit Mississippi, and I state, a Labor Day celebration on Coleman, music, and also you get a billboard with that. I forgot about it. There's also a billboard that's given in this to promote the festival at no cost to y'all. That's valued at $1,265. That's donated. So what I do is I'll fill the contract out on what I'm donating to. I give a copy to the mayor and Tammy, and we're good to go. And everything goes through us. And
Okay.
Ms. Brenda's aware of all the stuff. We met last week for quite a long time, so we're just making that official. So I can just fill in the blank and give it to you. The bands will show up. Everything's contractually through us, and the bands have already been contacted, and they're raring to go. Just wait for y'all to do this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lonnie.
Now, I
appreciate
have
that.
one question.
Yes, sir.
See on Facebook advertising for the festival there on Labor Day. Who was the Coleman Avenue project?
That is, Mandy Mills is, she just, that's just a catch-all, Eddie.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a name she put on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
But Mandy Mills is involved.
Yeah, and she created that name, I think, over a year ago, actually. That's it, Charlie?
That's it.
All right. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you again, Mr. Lonnie.
I got something
Appreciate
else
you
I'd like to
and
donate
Alice
to you,
Mosley.
if I may.
Okay.
There's some other things. I met with Mr. Clarence, and, well, at Alice Mosley Museum, we received a $10,000 grant a year ago to do what we call the Trash Can Receptacle Program. And what we did was we put in through the Heritage Foundation, they gave us $10,000, and we came up with a gimmick that we get 30 to 40 containers donated from Coca-Cola, and we hire artists to paint them. We got kids, we got school kids, we got artists, we got people, and what they do, it's actually an educational program. We give them the drum, they come up with the idea, they paint it on different sceneries up and down the coast, they give it back to the museum, and then we cut them a check for $125 per drum. Once it's completed and we receive it back, we in turn donate these drums back. First up on the list is the first 3 I have ready, and if you can get Bo to come get them, I'd like to donate 3 35-gallon trash receptacles painted in the theme of Waveland. It's got Waveland's name on it, it's got all kind of scenes, and y'all can use them as trash receptacles at the beach or whatever you choose to, but they're ready to go. So I'd like to make that donation to y'all now while I'm here.
Awesome, Mr. Lonnie, thank you.
Thank you,
That's,
Mr. Lonnie.
Yep, thank you.
that's
So-
incredible.
If y'all can accept those donations right now, I will take care of number 2.
All right, so y'all want to do another motion for this one? All right,
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Okay.
second.
all right, we'll vote that motion in. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Lonnie,
Last
thank
thing, Mr. Smith, is I'd like to address something that you personally has been working on for about 3 years now. Mayor Smith has asked me to help him on a project, and we have been working on this for 3 years, to try to find a way to put your carousel back. And when I say we've met 3 years on this, and we've met with so many people, I'd like to just throw this out there so Tammy, or Jeremy's very familiar with this in his capacity. Well, just approximately 3 or 4 hours ago, the Mississippi Department of Archives and Development just came out with their portfolio for grants for projects of that nature, and it has to be for old things, like use Ground Zero Museum, any old antiquated buildings. You can apply through the Mississippi the Mississippi Archives and Development to come up with an idea to put this carousel back. And the reason why the carousel is available for these fundings is because of its age and what y'all have and how long it is and the restoration of it. If, for instance, you would take this and put something at the park next to Ground Zero and attach a walkway, it becomes part of the funding. You can borrow up to $1 million, and the key is the grant match used to be 40%, but because of COVID and everything, they have dropped this match to only 20%. And they help you with architects, engineers, and everything. All you have to do is apply for it. Like I said, Mr. Burke just did it for another project we're working on. The city of Bay St. Louis has been reinstated on that CLG program, and I believe Waveland's been on it, so that's just something y'all eligible to get, not only for this, but for any antiquated building. But the key is it dropped from 40% down to 20. So hypothetically, if you spend $200,000, you're only coming up with 40 to put back, and they take care of all expenses, all the drawings and everything. So this is a golden opportunity. So,
Yeah, I'd love to see that, building. I mean, that carousel was sitting here to be used by kids. And so, and, you know, we put it up a few times and we had to push it by hand, but we put it up.
well, if you remember, Mr. Mayor, we talked to him 2 years ago about
Yep.
this, and we actually had a drawing, and we drew something like a circular thing to put under it and everything, and they developed it and said this was a great idea, Waveland needs to come, but like I said, the COVID and everything, and at one time, 40% match is a lot of money. But now, they have $13 million sitting in this kitty that they need to give away that was appropriated by the legislature. So usually they wait till June of the next year to do it, but because things are so tough, they moved the period up to now. So if you go to the Mississippi Department of Archives and Development, you're gonna see this grant showing up now. And all you gotta do is just put in a letter of intent, come up with an idea of what you wanna do, and they take the ball and run with it. The lady's name is Lydia Charles. She's the grant administrator, and like I said, I know Mr. Perk's familiar with her. But get the information, explore it, because this is, I think this carousel, from my past dealing with Mike, this thing needs to be put back up.
It does.
So, in any way I can help y'all, I'll be glad to, but this is a golden opportunity.
All good news, Mr. Lonnie. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
I needed that
Appreciate
today.
it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd love to see kids on that carousel. Moving on to planning and zoning, Tammy, would you mind reading, so I don't have to, number 7?
Sure. Number 7, Gaston Galjour, owner of the property commonly known as 148 Favre Street,
Bless you.
has made application for both side yard setback requirements of 12 feet, 6 inches for a lot with frontage of 50 foot or less to have recorded on pre-existing house. The requested side yard variances are for 2 feet, 6 inches on both sides, resulting in a 10-foot side yard setback.
And this was the one table from the last meeting?
That's correct.
This is the house that's already built on Favre Street,
Yeah, that's.
so they just needed a CO.
Can I make motion we accept the recommendation of the.
P and Z
planning
board?
and zoning?
Yes, sir, thank you for that.
Ward 2, second.
All right, we'll vote that then. As approved, Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 8, Donald Duplanche, owner of the property commonly known as 140 Angel Lane, has made an application for the temporary use of an RV during new construction. The RV will be placed on the property after the foundation is in place per regulations of Ordinance number 349, Section 309.5. The new construction permit has been issued. Okay.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion on number 8?
And with this ordinance, they have 6 months to, they have 6 months to do
put
what they
the
need to do,
foundation.
correct? No, once they get the foundation.
Once they get the foundation, but the RV permit is good for 6 months.
And after 6 months,
They have to reapply, there's no extension.
gotcha.
So when it came before planning and zoning, they did not have the permit pulled,
The permit is pulled.
but now it's pulled?
No, it was pulled by the zoning. When they went before zoning commission, the permit has already been.
Has been,
issued.
okay,
Yes,
Well, it's not gonna get moved on until foundation is
in place.
correct.
in place.
Great. All right, is that it? All right, we'll vote number 8.
Yes.
Ward 1, Mr. Burke, yes. Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 9, Mark Hinterling, owner of the property commonly known as 214 South Central Avenue, has made an application for 2 variances. A front yard variance of 3 feet in order to be 22 feet from the front property line, a rear yard variance of 14 feet in order to be 11 feet from the rear property line. After, you want me to read the vote, guys?
And then the vote was to approve it.
Yeah, after a unanimous vote by all commissioners present, Commissioner Adams declared the motion passed. Looks like the commission submitted, so do you want to know that vote also?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Adams called for a motion to approve the variances. Commissioner Frater moved to deny the front variance request, but to increase the rear yard variance request by 3 feet, which would be an 8-foot rear yard setback. Commissioner Adams seconded the motion.
Burke moves to take the
Recommend-
commissioner's recommendation,
All right. Which would be
which would be
The
no
8
front yard variance,
and an
but it'd be
8-foot
a
rear.
8-yard rear yard setback, so that's
8 foot.
12, no, 17 yard variance.
17 yards?
I mean, 17
Feet.
feet.
Okay, thank you.
Here's the one legal question, I don't know, it's council. So, moving the front yard variance from making it 22 feet to, but if something becomes, well, first of all, was anybody opposed to this at all at the meeting? Or spoke? Because I guess my issue would be is, if somebody's not against a 10-yard variance, they might be, or 10 feet from the property line, they might be against 5 feet from the property line. But if nobody spoke up against it,
I don't believe they did, I'll have to double check.
Mr. Frater, do you remember?
I don't recall. It's only on a,
It's a triangle.
and there's a 10, 15 foot,
Okay, I see, never mind. That's the
Yeah,
closest to it. It's not, half of it's gonna meet the setbacks. Most of the house is gonna meet the setbacks, correct?
Yeah, because there's a right
Yeah.
of way in between that one and the property behind it.
Okay, not this, that's not a street.
And it says no,
It's not a street, but it's a right of way.
Yeah, it's a, okay, all right, that's
Nope.
all I had.
nobody came
Did
forward to
anybody
comment.
second?
So,
Is my second?
yeah, I'll second.
No.
My thing was, they were asking for a rear yard variance of 14 feet in order to be 11 feet.
Yep.
3 foot,
A rear yard variance of
8
14.
yard, 8 foot.
Yeah, but increase the rear variance by 3 feet, so it'd be.
Yeah, but they're denying the 3 feet.
No, I'm trying to
So if
figure
you're
out what
if you're denying the 3 feet, and the house is proposed to be 30
But your
by
rear,
40, 39 by 45, I think I read.
but your rear yard variance will become 17 feet. Correct.
yes.
Yeah, your rear yard setback, they were asking for a 14-foot rear yard variance. Now they're gonna have a 17-foot rear yard variance. And that's from, but it's only gonna be in that bottom left corner is the variance, because the other side of the house is probably 40 feet, I'd guess.
45.
Yeah.
You good, Shane?
So it'd be 8. Yeah, so it'd be an 8-yard rear yard setback. 8 foot, so the motion would be a 17-foot
17
variance.
feet.
Okay.
And there's a 50-foot right-of-way between that property and the properties directly behind that.
Is there anyone here in opposition to this request? All right, are ready to vote? Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 10, Sue Johnson, owner of property parcel number 138M-0-33-088.002, has made an application for variances in order to split her parcel into 2 non-conforming buildable properties. The variances are for the street frontages as well as square foot requirements of zoning ordinance 349, section 701, area, yard, and height requirements for R1 single-family residential district. She is requesting 75 feet frontage and 7,500 square feet of area on both properties. Commissioner Adams made a motion to approve the variance request as written. Commissioner Frater seconded the motion. After a yes vote from the commissioners, Adams and Frater, with a no vote from Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Adams declared the motion passed.
Burke moves, we accept the recommendation of
Ward 2, second.
All right, any discussion on number 10?
Yes, with this variance being put in place, I'd like to make sure there's no, when they go to build, we come from no more variance far setbacks on that 75 foot.
I don't know if we can do it, but just go note it. But
All right. Anybody else?
I think planning wise, I think if anybody wants to build on this, I think this action, and this is more just a general statement as above. This is, I say depressed. They haven't had that much development going on. I think looking at smaller lots in this neighborhood might be something that needs to be looked at eventually, just in general, to see if we can get some more development back there. But that was just more of a general statement.
All right, thank you. All right, Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jared Reike, owner of the property commonly known as 118 Otterer Boulevard, has made a conditional use application for the proposal of a medical cannabis cultivation facility. The use of the building will be a partnership between Coast Canna Dispensary and Coast Canna Zen Labs Processing Center. Commissioner Adams made a motion to approve the conditional application as written with the condition that an activated carbon filtration system be required. Commissioner Frater seconded the motion. After a yes by the Commissioner Adams and Frater and a vote of no by Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Adams declared the application meets all conditions and criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance, section 906.3, and the motion passed.
I guess
I'll move.
All right,
I'll second the motion of, I guess, accepting that recommendation.
y'all want any discussion?
I guess I have some, I guess it's more, I guess not ignorance, but state law and everything else.
Mr. John,
And it might,
I had a question as well, about where the actual, I mean, I'm not sure the actual location, but it, you know, the Marijuana Act, you know, it has to be a certain, within, you know, city schools.
there's,
Right.
there's no, do you have the survey of what's 1,000 feet or 12? Is there any churches?
Yeah, that's only applicable to dispensaries, okay? And so what this application is for cultivation. So there are no distance requirements from schools, churches, and playgrounds as there are, or daycares, as there are with dispensaries.
Okay, and I guess when it comes to, obviously dispensaries has its own set of rules. A grow house, from what I read, I don't know, you know, generally speaking, you're thinking of a rural community and a farmland, that this is where this is gonna
Right,
be.
right.
Being in a actual city, you know, with neighbors around. I mean, what guarantees do you have, like, the actual odor of it coming out? Because from my understanding, there is some sort of odor that gets,
Right, we address that at the, and I have it in the.
yeah, like,
back.
we had a.
Some of the information there is repetitive from the zoning meeting, but it has to do with, and one of the requirements that through the zoning, it was that we use the activated carbon filtration systems, multiple activated carbon filtration systems, which is the best way of eliminating the odors. One of the things, and just to go into the security of this thing, is that we're in a metal building, you know, with all of the exterior and interior video cameras, 360 degrees, 24 hours a day. The one issue that anyone has typically ever had with a cultivation, and indoor cultivation, is the odor, okay? A lot of advances have been made in that regard over the years recently, and these carbon filter systems are very, very effective, and we intend to use and have agreed to use a system of multiple filtration canisters for this. One other thing that will be advantageous in terms of eliminating odors is that our initial stage of the grows will be in containers, which are shipping containers, basically, converted shipping containers. Those are located inside the metal building to begin with. So we've got a couple of different avenues to be able to eliminate the odors as they come out. They're filtered out of the containers, and then again filtered before they go out into, or vented out into the atmosphere. So there should be absolutely no odor noticed, by using this filtration system.
I guess this is just more of a, I'm sure 30 years ago, the conversation was had about casinos coming in. Like, honestly, the unknown. Like, this is a legal medical industry now. Personal beliefs aside by anybody, including myself, medical cannabis is a legal pharmaceutical industry now in Mississippi, so
right.
Might as well embrace it. Waveland and Hancock County voted well above the state of getting it in. I guess my concern is for this thing comes in and those people on Old Spanish Trail, Waveland Avenue, has an odor. I guess I don't know, is there a safeguard of, if this doesn't work out, because obviously you're gonna, do grow houses have to go through the state Department to get
Health.
Inspected also?
Yes, the Department of Health,
Through
yes.
Department of Health.
Yeah, the department, so they'll have that. I guess the other question is I believe that there's probably been some dispensaries that, do dispensaries and cultivations have to have any distance apart from those? Or is it just dispensaries from dispensaries?
It's only dispensaries from dispensaries,
So that-
yes.
On that, that's correct.
Okay, and then security-wise, obviously you said the camera. Is there any other security besides the camera that are required to have?
Well, there's going to be 360-degree
Yeah.
views cameras, high-definition cameras, exterior and interior. You have to have commercial locks on all the doors. We have some roll-up doors there, commercial locks and so forth. And there is a designated, required by the state, a designated security officer has to be, on board all the time.
Mr. John, let me ask you,
Yes, sir.
and I don't know if you can answer this, but what benefit would it be to the city for you to have a cultivation site within the city, if that makes any sense? As far as, but compared to a dispensary.
Right. Well, we're looking to employ 10 to 20 people minimum over the course of, for as long as we're in operation. That could grow. This is a 25,000 square foot building, so we've got a lot of room to be able to, employ and grow there. The benefits are, for the most part, employment. Commerce will be not only selling to local dispensaries and so forth, but to statewide dispensaries. It's more, there are going to be some tax benefits and so forth. I can't tell you what those are at this point, but one thing is to put a building that's been out of use since Katrina back into use and in a more secure situation than it is now.
No, so getting it back in commerce is one thing. I think one of the issues that the Department of Revenue is having is, in my dispensaries, obviously we're getting sales tax off of.
Right.
Processors, I think the equipment used is gonna probably be at a high tax personal property.
Right.
Is this building gonna become agricultural tax, though, because this becomes a grow house? Because the employment, great, but getting back in commerce and having a new industry truly for Hancock County is gonna be a benefit. I guess I'm trying to figure out every single problem you might have
Right.
before. And I guess my biggest concern was the nuisance of the smell, which I think we could probably address after the fact. I guess.
How would you address it after the fact?
Couldn't it be, almost a blighted one
Well, Mr. John, if I have a question.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure there's things in place with the activated carbon filter system before you go online that they will be doing a parts per million test on the exhaust coming out before they allow you to move
Yes.
forward.
Yes, sir.
And that's, I mean, I'm sure
That's
that
just common.
everything's
It's
in place for that.
kind of like an ASME code sort of thing where,
Right.
yes, sir, all the equipment that we'll be using is
Right.
fully tested.
But in this handout in bold, it says, most carbon filters can extract odors, but do not remove all odors,
Right,
or all types of odors.
right. Well, that's most filters, and I think they're talking about, you know, one filter isn't gonna do it, but we're looking at a system of filters so that, you know, as you progressively filter this, you know, the VOCs, which is the, oh gosh, I'm at a loss for the, it's, yeah, volatile
OSHA.
organic compounds. You know, we have not run into that problem in Colorado in terms of, you know, and we're very highly regulated by the MED, the Medical Marijuana Division, Enforcement Division there in Colorado. Like I said, there's been a lot of advances in this stuff. In fact, some of that information that's in there is a bit old. But look, we want, as we did when we were talking about the bank bill and so forth, we want to be good neighbors. And the very last thing that I want to do is to have any kind of issues with any of the public. And we'd like to, you know, just do the best we can to be a good neighbor here, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to satisfy the community and the city.
I just want to let y'all know, when Catherine and I went to MML training, they had said that growers had to have a certain size building and certain amount of acreage. It had to be zoned for growing. But I don't know what that was. I don't know
And it can be an
exactly what
exemption
that
too.
Well, that's what, right, the exemption is that if first of all, grows are typically only allowed in agricultural. There's no agricultural here. We own the building in a commercial zone. The laws also state that in a commercial zoning, as long as it's approved by the city. Special exception, then we're good to go. And again,
But I
look.
think the acreage still comes into play.
That's only in the event that it's an outside grow,
Yeah.
and this is a totally in
I just know that
capacity.
they told us in the training, so I don't know.
And I guess,
Right.
let me tell you, it's everything back, it's a legal industry. I guess my one thing, I guess it's not even about the application as a whole, but I don't know how many have been processed. Obviously, there's a lot more. It's, an industry like this is more taxing. If you have a business license and you're selling, you know, X, Y, and Z, it's cheap, whatever else. Obviously, there's a lot of safeguards that, you know, building department, zoning department has to come and possibly please them. The one thing that I think we need to do if we approve this is look at the privileged business license fee or application fee that is gonna be required here, that it truly reflects the amount of work and possibly because that, not to say it's capitalist, but you know, you're not gonna be making sales tax off of this, you're gonna be getting an industry out of it.
That's right.
I don't know how much ad valorem, but to make sure it truly reflects, and obviously, he's right here, obviously this is large business, so, I mean, I don't think it's unfathomable to have an application fee that, you know, Ms. Conrad's gonna
Yeah.
have to probably process, and
That's
Josh,
right.
that's, you know,
Sure.
$1,000, but honestly, an annual business license, so Waveland makes sure that its basis is covered for, yes, you're gonna have sales tax, but, I mean, not sales tax, just
Ad
property
valorem.
tax out of it, but, you know, that helps fund our police department, that I think facilities like this are gonna have to have extra patrol that, you know, most businesses are not.
Sure, that's reasonable.
Yep, I agree.
And they are gonna be governed by, like, the Department of Health. I mean, there's stricter regulations that they have to go to, and that license can be pulled at any time if they don't. And they go through, there's a whole table of sanctions that if they do this, they're fined this, and
So the state's going to,
regulate heavily.
okay,
Oh, yeah, this is a very, very heavily regulated industry.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a big clawback. And look, I'm willing to volunteer over there too, by the way.
Okay, we'd love to have you. Any other questions?
All right, anything else, Joe?
no,
That's it?
One question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Frater.
Could you
At the
come
meeting, I asked about the revenue to the city on the growing side. And Malcolm looked it up, he says it's a 4.5% excise tax that goes to the state. But the city can still levy a sales tax if you want it. Okay? And then at the processing, there's sales tax, and at the pharmacy, there's sales tax.
Yeah, and I guess that would be on the amount that, Mr. John, you would sell
Yes.
to a processor, right? Is that what you're showing?
But we're on the schedule to also come back before you for processing as well.
At the same location?
Yes, yeah.
And the rule specifically says Rule 5.10.3, a municipality or county may require a medical cannabis establishment to obtain a local license, permit, or registration to operate, and may charge a reasonable fee for that local license, permit, or registration, provided that fee is consistent with the fees charged to businesses that are not involved in the cannabis industry. There's your answer.
What was that last part? Okay, one second.
The last part of
Yeah,
that
just one second.
is that, I'm sorry,
You repeat that one more time.
consistent with fees charged to businesses that are not involved in the cannabis industry. So the fees have to be consistent.
Consistent with another business.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Jim?
Yes, could you hand me something?
I wasn't at the last P and Z meeting. I was in Seattle. I tried to zoom in and I couldn't get in there, so I was texting questions that I had, and what Brian is passing out to you is what the P and Z, we had 2 special meetings and we also had 2 regular meetings, and we came up with a list of rules and regulations and ordinances that we thought should be in place before we made any decisions on this, because we read it, this is all new to everybody, and we don't have any rules, regulations, or ordinances on this cannabis, on any of this stuff. And I think we really need to have something in place. And I'm not against any of this, but I just think that it needs to be looked at before we really make a decision on this. And this particular building that he's talking about is on the property line. There's no setbacks on it. And I actually asked John about it, if a fence could be erected around it for security. And he said no, because there's no room for a fence. The lot is so small that they can't put a fence around it to even contain the parking on it, if I'm correct, John.
Well, yes, sir, and I don't know if you saw the email that
Yes, yeah, I
with
agree with that.
diagrams.
But in my opinion, the place should have a fence around it, at the least, to keep anybody from getting into the parking lot. And could you put your mic over by you so I can hear you?
One of the things that is and I guess that they have to follow is that must have fencing or permanent walls that ensure that all stages in cultivation and cultivation activities are not visible or accessible to the public.
Yeah, that's true. Under Title 15, Part 22, Subpart 5, Rule 5.10.5 and 5.10.6 is the fencing around the perimeter or permanent walls. That's in there.
No, the walls
But we have as a city, we can make rules and regulations governing anybody putting in stuff like this. The state has some rules in effect, but we need to have, as a city, this is so new to everybody on the coast that we need to have good rules in place before we okay these. And John was talking about distance, and Jeremy, I'm going to wait till Jeremy comes back so I can answer that question. But in that handout, if you look, this is just some basic rules that we just thought of. And I think some of these should be in place before. And at the last meeting, they did a presentation, and I asked John if we enact any rules from the city, if the city does, will he have to follow them? And he says, well, I can't say that we'll follow rules that aren't in place yet, which is, I mean, that's fair, but the problem is if we say that all of these grow houses have to have a perimeter, a setback on them so they're not close to anything else, then he wouldn't have to abide by it. Nothing against you, John. He wouldn't have to abide by it because he'd be grandfathered in. Now, all right, Jeremy, to answer a question you have, this is Title 15, Part 22, Subpart 5, Rule number 5.4.3. The cultivation and a grower, this is similar to what the processors have to go through. They cannot be within 1,000 feet of a church, daycare, a school, or if anybody has any property that they plan on putting a daycare, school, or church on before we give an okay for him to do it. I just want everybody to just think about, like I say, I'm not against it, but I think this warehouse should be out in the country someplace, not in the middle of our city. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jim. Now, with the walls that was mentioned, so the walls on that particular building are sturdy. They're hefty walls. It's not just a regular
Yes,
metal
sir,
building.
it's a metal building on a concrete slab. They're absolutely secure.
Well, the thing is, Mr. Mayor, he's talking about containers inside of a metal structure, so you have double secure.
Double, yeah, I'm
there.
saying
And
just
I'm
the.
sure you'll have containers that are locked inside the building, and then the building is locked outside. I mean, that's.
Yeah, but just the building itself is a sturdy,
exactly.
strong structure, so you're
Exactly.
doubling it. And
Exactly,
so-
and that's the reason that the state came with the rules that they did. It either has to, a structure that's secure. And there will be no visible unless you're right up on the building. We're not gonna have any street signage or anything like that. We're not gonna be advertising for every passerby of what kind of industry is going on there. And
I'm sure you'll have your particular people that you grow for.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, they're gonna know where they're gonna go, and it's also regulated by, it's not like we have a lot of traffic. There will be virtually not as much traffic as he has right there now by the neighbor who's been using the building and parking all the movie trucks and so forth there. So it'll just be employees, basically, and the occasional transportation company who, again, that's regulated.
That's not gonna be y'all.
No. So, yeah, as products are shipped out, they're shipped out by a licensed, registered transportation company and so forth. So, I mean, it's really a secure thing. There's, in some states they have greenhouses, grow houses and things like that, and in those cases, there is required to be fencing and so forth because they're not as secure as a metal building is this one.
Right.
So.
All of us voted to participate in it, but my only question is, this is completely new to us. We'd all kind of looked at the dispensaries and different things, but, it is pretty close to some, residential properties and stuff, and the concern of the odor is there, can we reach out to maybe some other states that somebody has dealt with it and ask them, look, how far off, does the odor, how far out does the odor go, or, before we just.
Yeah, because, Arkansas would probably be a good place to look at, because I looked at of course, I was looking at the revenue at the time, but Arkansas is probably a good role model for us to look at. Mr. John, are you associated with other grow houses anywhere else in the United States?
Well, only in Colorado, but again, that's part of the reason for the filtration system, and you're talking about how far odors go and all this kind of stuff. If we eliminate the odors inside the building or as close as possible to it, there's gonna be no noticeable odor.
Mm-hmm.
How close are you to neighborhoods in Colorado? Are you in a rural area or in a?
Well, industrial. We're in industrial because we have
Mm-hmm.
industrial and agricultural zoning there. Right, so we're not within probably a half a mile from any residential areas in Colorado.
But you just said that's part of the regulation too, is the odors it emits from?
Well,
Is that-
no, not specifically. It's just that, you know, I mean, again, you know, part of being a good neighbor and, you know, I mean, we surely don't want to have an uprising in the community, because we're smelling it out. So it's to our benefit to, you know, keep everything on the QT and on the, without odor. And again, these filtration systems, there are other things that can be used, but typically, and there's some ozone type of filtration deals, but typically they require other chemicals and so forth that you know may or may not be good for the environment as well. So you know this activated carbon filtration is by far the most widely used and accepted and functional system anywhere. So you know, and if it comes down to there being complaints, I'll be more than happy to stand up right here and agree to and add filtration until we don't emit any odors. You know, it's just.
Well, and that's the point I was making earlier. Before you go online, I'm sure there's gonna be something in place where the odor is tested outside the building before you're allowed to move forward.
Yes, sir.
And that's-
Yes, sir. Yeah. You know, the problem, well, let me back up there. You know, it's kind of a chicken or the egg. You don't know, you aren't able to test odors until you're already well into the grow. Okay, it's really in the flowering stage of the grow that there's any issue of odors at all. And typically, just to be honest, it's a sweet smell. It's not, it's really not you hear these things, you know, skunk and stuff like that. That's a strain specific sort of a odor that those give off, but the typical flower, and of course we're using nothing but organic materials and so forth, and fertilizing and those kind of things, nutrients. But it's really it's just I don't believe that odor is going to be any kind of problem. But if it is, we'll address it.
And we do have a clawback. We clawback on that too. I mean, that's part of our enforcement. Is if there's odors, then we can shut him down if we needed to.
Yeah. So
I mean, so that is an option.
We're not concerned about it. Yes, sir.
Mr. Clarence?
Mr. Clarence, I'm sorry.
One of my concerns, and I'm on that board, had other concerns, but one of my concerns were too, is that the shopping center that we had there at one time have now kind of been cleared so that we can develop that. And I had a concern of how would that affect the development of that shopping center? And that shopping center would be more of a moneymaker in that one facility. Plus, I had other concerns, but that was one of the big concerns of how could we develop that with that there, or would it affect it? So that was one of the
Good
reasons
question.
I kind of voted no.
I have a question.
Okay, sir.
What are any OSHA requirements that you all have that would secure to make sure that things are safe?
No, sir. No OSHA requirements per se, but I mean there are requirements as far as the equipment that we'd be using only in the processing part of it. That's the only place that you would have any kind of equipment that could have any detrimental effect on anything. I mean we're looking at grow lights for the most part and containers. So, but no, as far as I know, there are no OSHA requirements. I've looked at, I've read extensively the requirements and so forth and the regulations that are put forth in Senate Bill 2095, and there's nothing there. So, but no, to be honest with you, I haven't looked at OSHA.
I worked in plants, and you know, accident happened.
And what kind of plant?
This is totally different.
Petrochemical plant.
Yeah, this is a totally different business.
I know it's totally different, but OSHA usually have regulations for just about everything that you manufacture.
No, this is new, I think, to everybody down here, but, and I think y'all got good questions. Ma'am, I'm sorry, you've been holding your hand up for quite a while.
I really don't know anything about the business. This is something new that's come to this area. But, is the EPA, a conditional thing as far as the growing of this marijuana?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a marijuana plant.
Yes, ma'am.
Is what you're gonna be doing.
Yes, ma'am.
Rather than processing, and it's gonna be in a, pretty much a close residential, in a business area, in a small community. What oversight is there in your facility? Who would come to check on you? Would the state or the city or an agency?
Well, I mean, the city could appoint anybody, any kind of,
But you're regulated by the state though, right? I mean,
yes, we are regulated very heavily by the state.
And how is that process? Is it on a piece of paper that you send, or do you have a physical person who comes in and inspects your plant on a regular basis? And looks at regularities or rules that they're gonna be processed?
Well, I don't know how the state of Mississippi is gonna do this. It's, again, dealt with by the Department of Health oversees everything about this. So if there's anything unhealthy that's going on about it, I gotta believe that we're gonna be called down on it. But no, we don't have any EPA regulations as far as I know. We can't, one of the things that I can assure you of is, and a question that I kind of assumed would probably be brought up here is like the effluent and what we dispose of, water and so forth like that. The only thing that the byproducts, the waste. The only thing that will be coming out as far as waste of our facility will be a very minimal amount of water that will go into the sewer system. And it comes out, we use it's called a flood and drain system, whereas most of the water that we will use is absorbed into the plant. There's very little left over after we have recycled the water a number of times, and we consistently recycle water so that it has nutrients and all that kind of stuff, so that we grow a good plant. At the end of the day, in the drain tubs, basically that fit below the grow tables, it's a very little bit of fluid, of water, and so forth, and it will not overtax any sewage systems or anything like that. And plus, we don't use any chemicals. We use, no harmful chemicals. We use all natural organic materials. We use all that in our grow materials, whether it be soil or cocoa or any of the other mediums that we use is all organic. So we make a real effort to not pollute or to not create any kind of environmental problems.
This is a very unregulated product here, and there's not a whole lot of oversight. And we haven't had any studies, we don't have any rules, we don't have any regulations, we don't have any controls over that. But hold on just for a moment. Now, the other impact of this is, suppose someone runs a vehicle into your metal building, secure,
Yeah.
and starts to grab everything in sight. And I would say, I don't know how the police feel about this, but it could be a little problematic, okay? But anyway, I just want to bring up these things because these are concerns. There's a lot of different businesses that we could be promoting. And this one is not a bad business, it's just that it's an unknown factor.
it's the newness of it, I think, it's the unknown that you're dealing with, Mr. John.
That's the whole
And-
point. When we go
yeah.
into a home, when we go and get a car, we look at specs. We get, as much information as we can. We had no opportunity to really study on this at all, and I think this needs some discussion. I think this needs some information.
Well, and I think do you remember, Mr. John, when this passed the state, or Jeremy,
It was like the second week of session last year.
In January.
Yeah,
right.
January of
The
last
the
year?
rules came out,
So,
the regulations came out in the second week of January. Yes, ma'am. So, I mean,
And
it's been
according
there for
to,
everyone to look at.
according to the state people, they're going to heavily regulate it. It's not gonna be unregulated.
But there's no OSHA, there's no EPA, there's no one that's gonna be inspecting, so what kind of rules and regulations?
Well,
do
you
we
always
on
have,
paper?
OSHA and EPA.
Their license is supposed to be renewed every year, and section, this is rule 6.4.9, an annual inspection by the department says may be required for renewal of a license. So they have to, they're, actually, you won't believe the amount of paperwork that I went through that John supplied me. And it is very heavily regulated by the state. But what they really need to do is, the cities need to get involved. And I think there's 3 cities on the coast that now have rules and regulations and laws and ordinances in place, but we don't. And the city said in April that they were gonna have special meetings to discuss this, and it didn't happen. P&Z was happy to have meetings and give our recommendations to the city, and we're waiting for the city to act on those recommendations.
And that,
It's very heavily regulated by the state.
and that's just a matter of, us creating our ordinances and laws that,
Right, so it's gonna be the chicken or the egg.
exactly. But, I think since I know there's 3 other cities on the coast that has that, we can pull some of those chickens from across the border and maybe take some of their regulations because I don't think anybody up here wants to just willy-nilly do anything.
Well, I know revenue's a big point, and that's what I hear. I hear revenue. And I know that is the first thing that one looks at. But there's also going to be repercussions down the line.
Right.
You're not gonna be sitting in that seat
That's right.
when that happens.
That's right.
You'll be around, but you're not gonna be there.
But I'll be right down, be living
Some of these
there.
gentlemen won't be there either.
That's
They'll
right.
have different ones. But what I'm saying, and we may not be here, but what I'm saying is that, I think just taking a minute, okay? And just going over and making maybe those contacts and having a meeting like we're having here and discuss it.
And to be honest,
Before you rule on something.
and I'm talking since January last year, I think we've all attended meetings with attorneys that deal with nothing but this throughout the state because we have a council of governments meeting every quarter. And so it was a real good meeting. I'm gonna come to you, Mr. John, just hang on. I don't want your arm to get tired. I'm not gonna forget you. But I'm not gonna sit up here and advocate for it, as well as I like the man and he's well presented.
Yes, the gentleman is very, likable.
Yes,
But this is not what we're doing. We're
No.
not here for a congenial thing.
No,
We're
ma'am.
here for business and we're looking for the best thing for what is
the
going
best
to
thing
be
for
the
Waveland,
future.
that's all that's right.
And money is not always the best thing.
No, I understand that.
So that's all I really wanted to say, but I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, appreciate your comments though. Sir, I know you had your hand up a minute ago. Right?
Hello, this is my first meeting. I wanted to make a comment. There seems to be a lot of confusion about any potential harm or danger surrounding the building itself or the new coming industry. I don't pretend to be an expert on the matter, but I am educated in both biology and nursing, so I understand plants and body. Will deal with different things and different concerns you might have. It's essentially talking about growing a plant inside of a container inside of a building that's not going to be marked, so nobody's going to know what's going on other than the people who are here in the room. As far as the odors, they express the different filtration systems that they'll be using. The only reason, the main reason that I sound like an advocate, because as I said, I was a nurse. Unfortunately, I started going blind and just found out that I had lupus. So I have a lot of different medical issues that I'm dealing with, but I don't have access to some of the things that I need because it's not legal and people are afraid to holding back coming up with more and more regulations. People's in these type of industries that come with billions of dollars for the whole area, just pick somewhere else to bring in their business or revenue. Even though we might not make so much money with just the taxation on whatever they'll make, it would be a step in the direction of bringing the industry. There are cigarettes sold at every gas station, and you know how dangerous those are. We have multiple liquor stores in the city, and we know what liquor does to the liver. But we also know people who misuse marijuana, those type of effects. But we also know marijuana, the benefits of blood pressure, pain relief, anxiety relief, high pressure relief, different things like that. So this is an industry that needs to be regulated, which it is by state. I understand the fear that we don't know the ins and outs of what will be, but the only way to figure it out is together as we move forward. This is a coming industry. It's gonna happen whether we decide to be a part of it or not. It's sweeping the nation, and everybody that takes part in it, the state is moving up in ranks on their economic value compared to the other 50 states. I played football for Arkansas, so I had to listen to the jokes about Mississippi for the longest, and now their economy is starting to pick up because they moved forward with this specific industry along with other things. So I understand everybody's fear, but there are benefits to the tail end of his industry. And me personally, I would benefit just from high pressure, blood pressure, different things like that.
That's right. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Mr. John, you thought I forgot you. I didn't forget you.
Romero?
Yes. Yes.
So I just got two questions, really. The first.
Glenn, I'm sorry, not John.
Glenn Romero, yes. I'm with being a resident on Waveland Avenue, which is not too far from where you plan on doing this. My first question is, why in the middle of the city? I just don't quite understand why, if it's kind of an agricultural deal, why wouldn't you be doing that in, far away from the city where you got the community right bearing down on you? I just don't understand why you would do that. That'd be my first question.
Well, for one thing, one of our partner owns the building.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been out of service for all these years. It's right now, it's more or less a problem, if anything else, for the community, and we'd like to bring employment there. And,
is this a problem because it's not being used, is what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, that's just my first question. I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's pretty strange having that right in the middle of a neighborhood. I mean, it is. It's right in the middle of a neighborhood. Yeah. I don't know why you would need to do that. Secondly, being in the engineering business myself, I'm very familiar with a lot of filtration systems, and it kind of really would bother me that someone wants to put something up that we'd be worried about odors that you don't seem to be very sure what saying that if there isn't an odor problem, you'd be willing to do more. Seems to me you should have the filtration figured out that you can prove that it won't be a problem before this all gets approved. It just, I don't know, that there's a lot to be said about carbon filtration. I totally understand, but it doesn't sound like you're getting ready to do this right in the middle of the city, and it don't sound like you're quite sure that we're not going to have an odor problem. That really bothers me. Why couldn't you have that figured out before you go ahead and get approved and build something? I don't know why.
I am certain that we can deal with the odor problem with the filtration systems that we're talking about. I mean, it's being used all over the country.
So you already said, you were just saying that if you do come up with an odor problem, then you'd be willing to do more about it. It seems kind of strange.
Well, I just want to be a good neighbor. I mean, if there's a lot of uncertainties that we all face in everything.
Well, that's just it. There's uncertainty right in the middle of our community where we live. I live right close to that. That's all I'm bringing up. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about it. I'm just bringing up a couple of things I think we want to think about before we go ahead and approve something that we don't really know the answers to yet. You kind of sounded like, well, if there is a problem, we're going to take care of it. How that is, I'm not really sure, but, I don't know if that filtration, you don't have any proof, it doesn't sound like that.
Well,
I
think the way you take care of it, if the filtration doesn't work and continually doesn't work, he has a business that shuts down. That's gonna be the only thing that.
All right. hang on, just 1 second, Karen. Malcolm?
Yeah, so the matter that you're talking about, sir, is a building code matter, not a zoning matter. And so that would be a matter that would be addressed as a part of the construction process and the operation. You can laugh, but that, I know a lot about this and I've researched this thoroughly. This is a building code issue, and it is something that is dealt with as a building code issue. So if, for example, the filtration system does not work to an optimum level, there are things that we can do from a building code standpoint. That's all I have to say.
All right. Sorry, Karen, go ahead.
If he get approved, will the city or the state, the people that are in the neighborhoods, will they be notified and told that if they want to sell their property, are they allowed to say that that's what's going into that building if you're not advertising? Because if somebody come out of town and they want to buy, if I live behind the building, are they going to advertise and say, hey, that's this whatever building?
I don't know that that's a requirement.
Can you, I mean, are they
So-
required to, that the city?
Well, it could be an air quality situation.
Right.
Since this was a planning and zoning issue, there should have been letters out to all the neighbors, right?
Right. I think what she's talking about, though, is after it's
Yeah.
approved, is it going to be something that it'll be notified to the public? You know, that's something that people just deal with signage, and if they make inquiries about it, they can find out. When people make attempts to buy property, they do what they call due diligence, and they check to see what neighboring properties are. Certainly, they'll respond at the code office and tell them what that use is.
Yeah, but Karen, I don't think that I haven't seen anything that requires somebody to advise. All right, y'all ready to vote?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
My thing is, I mean, is there anybody else that has one that we could contact just to see what, I mean, because it's new to us. I mean, and like I said, I voted for it, and
I did too.
But I just, you know, this is something new because, you know, the state was recommending that this be in agricultural or rural areas. So to bring it into the city, it brings up questions.
Well, I mean,
I'm not so sure that I know the answers to. I mean, you know, everybody may have their own answers or their own
So what the
thoughts or whatever.
What the law actually says is that you can put them in agricultural or industrial zones, or you can allow it in a commercial zone if you so desire. Now, as you know, the way our zoning map is set up, we don't have a lot of agricultural or industrial zones as it is.
Right.
Very little of that fact. In fact, I'm not sure we have any agricultural. So as a result, it takes these kind of questions to come up. Now, y'all made a decision to limit it to the highway commercial zone, which is the most intensive commercial that there is. And this is a highway commercial zone, regardless of what people said about it being in the neighborhood. It is a highway commercial property. Okay? It just so happens that it doesn't front on the highway.
And so what do you do
Yeah.
if, you know, one of the questions from Malcolm was, what do you do if an issue comes up after it's been approved? Whether it be smell, security, whatever the reason may be.
Just like anything else, it would be a code issue, and we would deal with it as a code violation issue if it was some violation of some code. Okay, we have the building code, we have all sorts of codes that deal with plumbing and lots of different things. And so if it perchance it were to violate one of those codes, we'd give them a letter of citation, and they'd go ahead and either correct or go to city court.
Go to court.
Yeah, and we can take other action as well if necessary.
That's right. And that's what I was saying about the clawback. There are clawbacks in the codes.
Right.
That, you know, not only is it strictly enforced by the state, is it heavily state regulated, but it's also enforced by codes.
And if they go so far as to just violate egregiously, then of course there are provisions to revoke permits as well. But that's a pretty draconian method to try to solve a problem. Typically, they give them opportunity to cure the problem. Okay? So it's a code violation is what it amounts to, that process.
All right, anything else? You ready to vote? Ward 1?
Burke, yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you. All right, Mr. Thurloff, you here?
I am.
All right. We'll go to the restroom while you do your.
Good evening. I just have a few items. It's the first meeting of the month.
and so that's why we're on the agenda. KWB, Keep Waveland Beautiful. We're, as you know, we're advocates for our community as far as the reason that a lot of us live here, for the uniqueness of the community and our natural resources here. But I'd like to start off with, as you know, we've labeled, we have at the top of our list the branding of Coleman Avenue. And I want to call attention to a temporary exhibit at Ground Zero that's underway right now. And Ms. Cullen might want to address this. I haven't spoken with her about it, but it's talkative trees. She has, besides just the exhibit and the museum items that are there every day, Ms. Cullen has had temporary exhibits. Last year, we had a beautiful Smithsonian exhibit, and we've had a few smaller ones since then. And the one that's underway right now is Talkative Trees, and it goes until Saturday, the 27th of August.
Hey, Ryan, we actually gonna go to the end of your song because of the Katrina Memorial. So it's gonna go through August 31st.
Very good.
We just changed that.
Now, the person that has put the exhibit together has had event days where she's taken the people that have attended through her exhibit. Unfortunately, 3 have already passed, but we still have 2 ahead of us. One Tuesday, August 16th, and the last one would be Saturday, August 27th. So I just wanted to point that out because us as KWB is a number of residents, all of us, and I want us all to be pulling on the same end of the road. And Ground Zero is very important to this community and to Coleman.
Absolutely.
Specifically. Mr. Falgott, I met him outside. I wasn't aware of a couple of things that he brought up. One, I was aware of the trash cans that he's getting from Louisiana because it was brought up at the Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday morning. I've been working with Vic Johnson with the county and getting trash cans out on the beach since the county has taken over maintenance of the beach. I pointed out to Vic a few meetings ago that you could walk from Coleman Avenue down to the city limits. There were 6 trash cans on the 4th of July weekend. That, to me, should have never happened. Vic has been working on getting 100 trash cans, and he has that problem solved. And he told me yesterday after the Board of Supervisors meeting that he will have them in place by Labor Day weekend. So that will improve on that. Now, as far as the painting, which Lonnie brought up, Donna Martin and I have spoken, and others have spoken of these new trash cans that are coming in from the county with Our Lady Academy, Bay Waveland School District, St. Stanislaus, Hancock County School District, and the kids and the students that are into art will paint these once we get them. We'll get a program. As you heard from Lonnie, he's already gotten involved in some of this also. So KWB also has that on their list of getting these trash cans painted by the local kids and students to bring the young people into that part of the community and have a purpose, feel a purpose, and be proud of their city.
Yeah, because Don Seibenkettel, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Had done the very same thing, and so I certainly agree.
Just a couple of other items real quickly, because we're getting a little short on time. As far as the Coleman Avenue brand, just to bring you up to date, I mentioned last month that we were getting together, KWB was getting together with Dr. Christian Stevenson and walking the Studio Waveland property, because that landscaping has to be brought up along with the parking lot. That has been ignored and not attended to for a number of years. Dr. Stevenson gave us a lot of good comments. He addressed the original landscape plan that I had and gave his opinion on that as a horticulturist versus a landscape architect, and versus what's there that we can bring back, and then a few things that we can add together. So we are developing a plan to present to the city so that we can all get behind that and bring that property back up and help Coleman Avenue tremendously. Getz Park, Mr. Mayor, you answered one of my emails a few weeks ago about who I could be working with, KWB, excuse me, could be working with on completing Getz Park. And you indicated to contact Willie Moody, and Willie and I have been in conversation. Alderman LaFontaine, based on his attendance at one of our KWB meetings and seeing that we had Getz Park and that parking lot on our list of getting coordinated, has helped Willie get the fence completed to be a barrier so that the kids that are in the park don't run out into the parking lot that now gets a lot more traffic than it ever has, because Ground Zero gets a lot more visitors.
That's right.
And we have the Sugar Pot Bakery there that's getting a lot of traffic. So Willie has gotten the fence up. He put in the ADA equipment at the beginning of this week. He's not quite complete with it, and we are working on getting that coordinated. So that's underway. He's got, he has addressed the parking striping and indicating the flow of traffic through the parking lot. He's working on that also. So we appreciate particularly Alderman LaFontaine's help in that. Real quickly, I hope it was brought up at the last meeting or the previous meeting that Orion, that has done the economic study for Highway 90, is ready to give its final presentation. And I hope that it was mentioned that it was going to happen in August. So it's not happening tonight, so I hope it's happening in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was mentioned, it was at the second.
August, yes, sir, it's gonna be August 17th.
Very good. And then, as we know in previous presentations that he made, he said the low-hanging fruit is the landscaping and the signage.
And speaking of which, and I don't know if you're aware, but Jason Favre with Mississippi Power
Yes.
is applying for a $100,000 grant to address the derelict signs on Highway 90. So, and what that's going to do is allow the board to say, Claiborne Hill's got good signs, but I'm just going to use them as an example. If to repair their sign and bring it up to par, it would be $50,000. The board can give $25,000 toward that sign. So that is going, it should address a lot of our signs on Highway 90.
Well, yes, the signage is a big situation. And a local restaurant that is located right next to the Chinese buffet has put up new signage that is totally against, doesn't meet the ordinance at all. And that's happened in the last 2 months. So
Well,
that.
That'll
I
be
hope-
addressed in that facade grant, though.
I hope that we can address that and get that underway. Real quickly, now with the cannabis approvals tonight, and on that building on Alder Boulevard, that was repaved approximately 4 years ago. They left the center median for landscaping. I spoke with the previous city clerk about that a couple of times because he was with and had a relationship with the city engineer about that. It needed to be built up, the center, so that the water would flow over the asphalt and into the drainage. That didn't happen.
No, and there's a lot of driving through that median. I can
There's a
tell you.
lot of drive-through, and particularly at this address where the
Yes.
cultivation
Well,
building
in
is.
front of the pharmacy mainly, but yeah, it's right there.
So if we could get the city engineer to make improvements on that, and we had some beautiful crepe myrtles put in there,
Yep.
and we need to get the engineering addressed on that and improved.
That's auditable?
Order, yes, sir.
What you just said, okay.
Yeah, because actually I had a conversation with MDOT because when you exit out to the highway or you come in order from the highway, it is a dangerous intersection. So they are addressing that.
And the last item is on the Protracted Tree Ordinance, and Jim, who is our treasurer and has been the co-chair for a number of years with Keep Waveland Beautiful. He's been with Keep Waveland Beautiful longer than I have. He would like to address a few things on the Protracted Tree Ordinance.
Brian wants me to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan.
The protected tree ordinance, we just, I went over the last year just to look to see how many trees have been cut down and the replacement trees. And there are 23 trees that need to be planted by people who cut down trees that I don't think have planted trees. And I'm gonna give this list to Josh, and he's gonna check to make sure that these trees have been planted. But Keep Waveland Beautiful is looking to places to plant on city property, these 23 trees. So that's what we're doing. Also, we would, next planning and zoning meeting, I'm going to suggest that we add to the protected tree ordinance where if somebody cuts down a tree and they have to replace it with 5 trees, it states that they put them on their property or they donate them to the city. And I would like to add to that they could pay, because this time of year, you can't plant a tree. And we had somebody just a little while ago that had 9 trees he was supposed to plant, and they were given 30 days to do it. Well, there's no way that anybody would plant a tree in this kind of weather. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and put a monetary value on planting a tree and add that to the ordinance. And when I did the research on it, it would be $150 for the tree, $100 to plant it. So add to the ordinance $250 in lieu of planting a tree, and that would go into a special tree preservation fund in the city. And now that's all I wanted to say. Do you have any questions about that?
Thank you, Mr. Jim. I appreciate y'all's efforts, truly. Do you have any comments on that?
I don't. I'll put something together for you for the amendment that you talked about, the protected tree ordinance.
All right, excellent.
When are y'all meeting again? Say again, John?
Next zoning meeting is August 15th.
Okay, I might have something ready by then. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on, we come to the consent agenda number 13. Motion to approve the following consent agenda listed items A through O. Unless y'all have any you want to remove.
Yes.
And which ones would that be, sir?
G, H, L, and M.
Can you remove F also?
I'd like to take N off the discussion also.
I couldn't hear that. What was it? N, like Nancy?
So
Okay.
F, G, H,
All right.
F you said, Jeremy?
L, M, and N.
Yep, F, G, H, L, and M. Is that right? And N as well.
Right. So you have a motion to approve the rest of them?
All right, so do I have a motion to approve
Burke moves.
those, except for those?
Ward 2 second.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
motion approved with taking off,
F,
wait, motion to approve A through E, then I, J, K, and O.
Correct.
You have
sounds
those?
good. All right, have a motion and a second?
I'll second.
All right, we'll vote that motion. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richards.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
just have a comment. On K, all right, I just want the minister to like, the correspondence was from Ground Zero, which is little and to the copy.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so going back up to F.
Oh, F, I guess, can we? Or I guess I'll take a motion to approve. I had discussion more with the titles than anything else, so,
Is that your motion?
yes.
Motion to discuss.
Well, I guess if you want to discuss.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a second.
I'll second.
All right, discussion, Jeremy?
And obviously, because I've dealt with Ms. Conrad recently, but what's, I guess my question is, and I guess it's even somehow comes budgetary wise, because over the years, it seems like instead of doing a title for somebody with their job description, we just go add titles to them to go pay them. I guess the way Ms. Conrad's obviously taking care of permits right now, running the zoning department, essentially running the zoning department.
She is running the zoning department.
No, she's running,
Yeah.
but I guess in order for simplicity's sake, and then honestly, I think for budgetary, because when budget comes,
Right.
in order to, the salary's gonna be coming out of our CRS, zoning, building, like 3 different funds are gonna be, correct me if I'm wrong, gonna be paying the salary. I don't know, how,
We had spoke, and I really hope we all just leave all expenses to our new budget. But I do need to send, she gave me her job, like each job description for each one of these, and I was gonna send it over to the auditors for internal controls. I don't see anything that she would be intertwining the two, but I would rather the auditors tell us so we don't get wrote up for that.
no, and I guess my issue, and I guess it's more budgetary of calling Ms. Conrad, or this position, calling it, having it a title. And these are your responsibilities, instead of calling it, you know, clerk of permits, building inspections.
4 titles.
4 titles. I think,
We're gonna have to take the job description and redo it to
Yeah.
go ahead and include this into one position is what it
Yeah,
amounts
just
to.
like we did with Public Works a
Right.
few years ago. Made the Public Works manager versus
and I
Public
don't,
Works director.
and I don't
She
know,
also does privilege licenses.
Yeah.
well, no,
Yeah,
that
and
should
she
be
also
under,
does privilege license as well.
Yeah.
and I guess I don't know how simplicity, but can we just make it one title and say,
That's what we're gonna do. That's what Malcolm was
so
saying.
what title will we make it in the motion? Cause I wanna just so whenever budget time comes, this is the salary. It has nothing to do with the salary. It has to do with, these are responsibility. Granted, this is a robust amount of work,
You're
It
looking
is.
for a title.
Yeah.
period. Yeah, like just
Yeah.
a title, like CRS and zoning and building, they go hand in hand, but
Yeah.
But the problem is, I think you actually have to have a person designated as a CRS
Correct.
yeah.
in order to meet those requirements.
That's right.
That's right.
So even if you gave them one specific title, you're still gonna have to have on the end of it CRS coordinator.
Right. I would suggest we make it zoning manager at this
Okay.
point, and then you can go ahead and
And then she can
include
still,
that. She can do the other
so
functions as
can,
well.
I don't know if just for the
As a
time
part of
being,
that,
can we
yeah.
just, it was motion discussion, approve request for John Conrad be named zoning manager,
Yeah, to include all those duties.
Yep.
but call it zoning manager at that rate.
Yeah, and that would also, as Shane says, I agree with him, would have to include and CRS coordinator. Has
So
to be
in
tagged on there.
Scratch clerk of permits, building inspection, zoning clerk, call it zoning manager,
Okay.
and CRS coordinator at a rate of $18.10 per hour.
Yeah,
One
no,
thing.
and we discussed that. Kimberly and I discussed that today.
The new budget for the, raise.
Yeah, because actually CRS coordinator is not included in that 1810. Because that is a separate,
Set price.
separate ordeal. We
Well, and I
need to
guess,
discuss
no,
that
but
too.
my deal is, and this is more of a,
No, but I'm just letting you know.
she's doing this right now, so.
She's been doing this
That's
for 2 months.
That's right.
But no, it needs to,
Josh and,
the rate needs to take effect today.
But we're still paying someone. We still pay Dave until August 27th.
Actually, if I can say.
Actually, we
I
own,
talked-
yeah, go ahead,
I'm
Tammy.
sorry, I talked to Pam earlier, like you were in the office. He only has,
5.5.
yeah, about 5.5 hours left. That's it. That's all this payroll will pay him, and then he's done.
Because our budget amendment is ferocious. So I'm just letting everybody know right now, before you approve spending 1 penny, that you really need to look at this side of our budget amendment.
I do think, though, that in fairness to Ms. Conrad, she has been doing this position
You get
since
paid for
Mr.
it.
Draz has been out on sick leave. And because he only has 5 hours left, there's gonna be, what I would believe to be adequate money left in the budget to cover that additional compensation
I think
because,
so, just because
Just-
of him not working.
yeah. Well, you know, otherwise, we're gonna be in a position where we shouldn't ask her to do that job. Yeah,
right.
so, and I think at this point, she has earned it. I have watched her personally, and I don't compliment easily, but I'm gonna tell you, she worked very hard to make sure that we had no slips and falls after Mr. Draz went out. We had several while he was here, but since then, she's helped me correct everything that, we had to do, and, you know, things are going well. We're not missing any deadlines, and things are doing extremely well, and she has, stepped up, worked from home, worked on her vacation, did everything I've asked her, and so I would ask that
And me
you
as
go
well.
ahead and allow that to take effect immediately. And I do think we do have additional funds in the compensation that was allocated for Mr. Draz, which we will not be paying after 5 hours of compensation that he's accrued.
All right, so.
We'll work our way through. All right, anything else?
What if we did a contingent upon the comptroller's recommendation?
Could?
Yeah, because that's what she wanted anyway, if I'm correct.
Right, because if the money, if the budget, if we can't make this budget balance, and we don't have, our income was over budgeted, so now we have that part too to deal with. And if we don't, we will be pulling from our investments to make our budget amendment.
Let me ask you this. What was, can I ask in public record, public meeting, what was the
So far,
prior position that has resigned? What was the hourly rate there?
This is the same pay.
Same pay.
So what would we have done
If he'd have stayed, we'd have
if he
still
would have stayed,
paid.
how would we have
Yeah.
made his pay throughout the year?
we
If
still
we
would
can't
have had
make,
to make an amendment. The
Right.
budget is, when you see the amendments that we need to make, there are some in salaries.
right, but what I'm saying is
We would have had to make an amendment to
to
put
finish
the
out in the
salary.
building department.
Yes.
I mean, if it's this,
Could
if,
possibly. I don't know. I'm waiting on Pam to tell me the
She's waiting
2
on those
months
numbers.
we have left.
I would highly recommend that we try to get a meeting in here as quick as possible, because if you're saying that it's gonna be that extreme, then we need to have a meeting immediately, tomorrow. I mean,
It's not like that, Shane.
I'm just saying,
it's
I
not
mean,
like
but if it's, I mean, if we're,
Kim.
I mean, Kim's saying it's gonna be an extreme budget amendment.
No, I don't believe that, because you know me. If I did, I wouldn't, because I've been there, done that. But, and here's what I say, and I said it today. If Dave was not leaving, we were still gonna pay him. And there was money budgeted in there for that. So there's not gonna be a hit on that, I can tell you. And what she's talking about is things like, and I hate to say it right now, but the previous person that sat in her seat and somebody else didn't charge a lot of things, am I right? Not charge it, but charge it to the right account, like,
Correct.
And you can give some examples, I don't wanna do that. But,
I think that's something that's really not part of this, but
Yeah.
this question right here, right now, I think the question is,
Yeah.
do you want to go ahead and give Ms. Conrad this position? And I'll provide you with the job description like we talked about, and at this rate.
Well, if somebody's
Yeah.
doing a job, they should get the pay for it, I
Right.
agree.
Correct.
right, I agree.
But my thing is, you know, as far as the budget amendment, I just don't see, if you're replacing a position that was already budgeted for that money, then
That's
what's
right.
the-
And look, if we were continuing to pay Mr. Draz all along, all the way through August, and then therefore through September until the end of the budget year, then I would think that it would make sense. But since we're not, because as Tammy points out, he only has 5 hours left of accrued compensation, there is gonna be funding there to do that. Now, will we have to make adjustments for these other things she's talking about? Yes, but that's for us to
That's
have,
something different.
that's gonna be at the next meeting. I believe we're gonna do the second meeting of August to talk about the budget amendment.
And honestly, Jean's pay right now is in the budget. So
Right,
if we give her Dave's pay, her pay is gonna be left in that
Right.
fund as well.
exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So, it's-
Right, but you also brought another person into that department that moved up and filled John's position. So technically, yeah, John's position is still in there, but the other position was also brought in.
that's actually was code enforcement.
That was McKee's.
That was McKee's spot, so.
Yeah.
So that was already budgeted as well.
Yeah.
So that didn't fill John's,
No, she
okay.
took
Right.
Kesey's, yeah.
No. That's why I feel comfortable with it. All right, you ready to vote?
No, Malcolm, you saying you feel comfortable that it's there?
I'm telling you that because you've already budgeted for Mr. Draz's compensation and for Jean's compensation to go from, what are you at right now, Jean, per hour?
1458.
To go from 1458 to 1810 is not gonna be a big adjustment to make. And otherwise,
You're only
the
using,
fair thing to do, if we're not gonna do this, is we need to stop zoning until we get through the budget process.
can't
And I
do
don't
that.
think you wanna do that.
Can't stop zoning.
Yeah. It's not fair to ask her to continue to do this. She's already been doing it for 2 months. We can't retroactively pay her for that. Like I said, she really stepped up and handled this very well. And I don't want to keep beating at it, but I think it's appropriate.
I do too.
I mean, I
Alright.
just want to clarify that I'm not trying to deny her.
Yes, I
I just
understand.
want to
No,
make sure
no,
that we
no,
have
right.
it there.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, to your point, I think we go ahead and approve this because the salary budget is already there for Mr. Dave. He's
Right.
no longer there. So it's not a hit on the salary budget.
Right.
Right, and she's doing both, what she's doing now and zoning as well.
Right.
And so we're actually saving money.
And let me just tell you this, Charlie, just to give you something to think about. In addition to this matter, Mr. Hayes wanted to put on there to hire an additional inspector. Well, we pulled that off the agenda because that's an appropriate question to bring up in the budget process, which will be coming up in August and September, not to go ahead and deal with now. Not saying he doesn't need an inspector, not saying he doesn't need it right now, but we had to hold on that question.
Yep, again, it was
Yeah.
a new thing, so. I
Right.
mean, we're dealing with something we already had.
Right.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna vote F. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, who wanted G?
G, me, sir.
Okay,
Motion to discuss.
okay,
I'll second.
all right. Go ahead, Charlie.
All right. How many deputy city clerks do we have right now?
All right, so here's the thing. When Tammy took over the city clerk position, it left her spot open. So Kylie has been working really hard on these minutes. Tammy, you can chime in and tell them what she does.
Right, well,
We don't have as many city clerks as you think, I mean, deputy clerks.
so prior to my appointment, we had, 2 deputy city clerks, and of course, when Mr. Duckworth left, and at one point, if you guys remember, we had like 4 or 5 deputy city clerks. With my discussion with Mr. Jones and with the mayor, we really need to have somebody there in case I'm not there, to step in just in case we need a check signed or what have you. only in a case of an emergency. As far as the minutes and stuff, Kylie has been training so hard. In fact, how it got started, her first few days, I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm typing minutes. She just started doing it on her own. And she and I are reviewing them and, showing her how I do the packets. So when I stepped up, there was no one to be the Tammy. Mickey had a
Yeah,
Tammy.
so
Lisa
that was,
Blanchard had a Tammy, but I
that was an
didn't.
open position.
Right.
So Kim's not a deputy clerk, nor is Catherine.
No, sir.
Right. It doesn't mean that they can't be made
Right.
deputy clerks. Most cities that
Everybody
I
is.
know about, not just the ones I work with, have multiple deputy city clerks because in the event people take vacations, they go out on sick leave, there are documents that have to be attested, which means signed by the clerk, and so therefore you have to have somebody else available. And sometimes you have to have co-signing on, or co-signatures on checks, and it's required to have that as well. So it's a requirement to have at least one.
And it's not
so-
adding a position,
No.
Right,
it's just filling a vacant position that was left by Tammy.
right. It's
No
just
vacant
giving them,
title.
just giving them
Sir?
the title,
A
giving them
vacant
the
title.
title, right.
Yes.
Yeah, well, position.
Yeah.
All right, did I answer that?
Good answer.
Okay.
Do you want to combine H as well?
Yeah, let's
Charlie?
do H too.
Okay. Motion on that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Burke seconds.
All right, this is G and H.
Okay.
G and H.
I'll keep
All
the
right,
second.
Ward one, Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ward two, Mr.
Whoa,
Richardson.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Didn't you just ask if I wanted to combine H with G?
I did. I thought,
Yeah.
I thought that's what we were talking about, so you could vote on them together, but if you don't want to.
No, well, I just have a question here.
Oh, okay.
What various bank accounts?
It would be, and we can restrict it to the docket checks and the, maybe a payroll check, but there's only one payroll check that we ever have to sign.
It's just attesting to the mayor's
Yeah,
signature is all it is.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
she wouldn't have control of any checking accounts, or she doesn't have access to the bank accounts online or anything like that. It would just be, like I said, if God forbid I was sick or out of the office, she could sign,
Right.
like
All right.
the refund,
Yeah.
like utility refund checks.
Okay.
The
So-
bank's requirement is, we have to have, in the state law, is we have to have both the mayor's signature and at least a clerk sign. And so the clerk on her own, Tammy or the deputy clerk, cannot sign a check and make it payable.
Sure.
Okay, let's
Okay,
vote.
and this is combining G and H.
G and
Good with
H.
that? All right, Ward one, Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ward two, Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
Ward three, Mr. LaFontaine,
Yes.
and Ward four, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Just read the first sentence.
Next one's L.
All right,
Consider recommending-
You just have to read the first sentence of it.
yep, consider, I guess I need a motion to consider rescinding the award of a bid dated April 2022 to Coastal Development and Construction.
Burke moves.
I'll second.
All right,
Mayor, why
discussion.
don't we combine both of them if we can, L and M?
Okay.
I'll keep my second to combine them.
Okay. All right, discussion on L and M.
Yeah, why do we have to redo this?
Because according to state law, in addition to advertising it in the newspaper, which was done, you also have to put it in what they call the Mississippi Contract Procurement Center. And that's a state website basically that puts it out through the state. And apparently through inadvertence, it was not also sent to the Contract Procurement Center. I could find no record that it would actually post at that site. And I made a pretty diligent search to try to find it. I made several efforts to try to contact them to see if they could find it, talking about at the state level, and they did not find it posted. So because of that, we have to, because we didn't go through the proper steps required by law, we have to rescind and re-advertise.
All right, anything else?
But it wasn't.
No. Wasn't you, huh, Tammy?
No, sir.
No.
No,
Okay.
sir. For the record, no.
All right.
All right, we'll vote. Ward one, Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ward two, Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
Ward three, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward four, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you. Next one is N, approve resolution creating the Mississippi Law Enforcement and Firefighter Premium Pay Program. The bill signed into law by Mississippi House Bill 1542.
I'll move.
Burke seconds.
And, thank you. And just to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Kimberly, but through the COVID-19 money, this gives the fire and police that were on duty at the time during COVID $1,000. Just a flat $1,000 extra.
And it comes from the CARES Act money?
Comes from CARES Act
But
money.
it's not CARES Act money we have. We
Right.
apply for the CARES Act money.
That's right. So this gives them a little boost in arm for working during COVID.
Comes through the state.
And that's the reason why I took it off. I just wanted a little clarification. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure where the money and the funding
No,
was
I'm
coming
glad
from.
you did.
Any of our money.
Good,
It's a-
okay.
it's a
Now,
total
they're gonna
separate-
be,
And this is just a little something else we can do for our first responders.
Because it doesn't state how it's funded actually through, in our
That's right.
docket here. I
It
just
is.
wanted to get clarification of where it's coming from.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Bobby. I
it's not
appreciate that.
coming from any of our money. It's a totally
are they gonna be
separate grant.
taxed on this money?
Tax on
I'm sure it
everything.
will. I'm sure.
When will it be available?
And
for?
just to make one point clear, it's for those full-time and part-time, both law enforcement and firefighters that were serving as of July 1st, 2022.
At the
Now, of
time.
course, that's right. And, of course, we're talking about July 1st, 2022 just occurred. But the idea is that these people have been involved, through the COVID process.
Yeah.
And so this is something that the state's trying to do, and I think it goes through the Department of Public Safety,
Yep.
where they've allocated these funds for them.
I
And
think
it's strictly
I think it's a
just,
pretty good thing that we can approve to do that and the state pay for it.
and just for the benefit of everybody else, it's only for those types of employees,
Yep.
firefighters and law enforcement. The city would love to make it available for all employees, but it's not. It's just for those.
And for those people that just worked during the time of COVID,
Yep.
And
Ward-
there's zero cost to the city.
zero cost. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Burke, yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you. And thanks, Kimberly, for looking into that. That's the end of the consent agenda. Bless you. 14, motion to approve docket of claims paid and unpaid in the amount of $1,634,813.41.
Burke seconds.
Any discussion on 14?
Yes. I have one question. Are we still bound to be paying Mr. Lombardo $17,000 and change next docket, since we're cutting main drains, right-of-ways, and parks?
That's up to y'all as a board.
Main drains are cut on my big, map, please.
Come to the podium, Bo.
Yeah.
I cut the main drains because storm season's come along and wanted to get in there. He has 4 cuts a year, so he's only cut 3 months. I talked to him, so he's gonna do those 4 cuts before his contract is out in, I think it's April. So that's how that's gonna cover it. If he don't cut them, we don't pay him for those 4 cuts.
Is that how the contract reads?
Yes, sir.
How many times did we cut that last year, Bo?
With the main drains?
Yep.
I wanna say every other time we cut, we try to. Maybe 4 or 5 times a year, maybe.
We cut it 4 or 5 times?
Cause we use the pull behind on it.
Chris, are you still keeping up with
Yes,
what's being cut and
yes. We stayed in email or in text message back and forth as in center.
won't you come up to the podium? I'm sorry. Thank you, Bo.
Yes, we stay in contact with text messages, with emails,
With Mr. Lombardo?
with Steve Lombardo, that the drains need to be cut, that like we had one time before, we were supposed to get in session before with renewing the contract. What needed to be cut, what didn't need to be cut, like Old Gainesville Road. Now, I guess now Old Gainesville has been cut. Fantastic. that stuff is that high. Well, just like if we have undeveloped roads that need to get cut, if they're gonna get developed, we're gonna cut those. Are those, is that us? I asked this question once before and I never got answered. So with that being said, if we have roads that are undeveloped, we're going out and cutting these. Say somebody wants to put a house there. Are we cutting that to that house? Are we still going out and cutting that? We had to go cut South Street. I made an email or a text message to Steve saying, hey, look, what about this? I did a ride around with him. What about these? What about this? What about the highway? Claiborne Hills. That grass is this tall. When are we gonna cut that? When are we gonna see a tractor out there? Haven't seen one. What is it? What are we doing? So we've had a meeting before. I was in that meeting. Never did get back a hold of, never did get said anything to. I still watch them. Steve, hey Steve, where are we at today? Well, I'm over here. I see a guy over here off of Water Street, Sandy Street. One guy cutting. When are we gonna get cemetery? Text message. When we get cemetery, when is that? No answer back. Well, we're gonna do Coleman. We're gonna do the parks. Willie's already done the parks. So what are we doing?
So are you telling me, sitting here telling the board that what's supposed to be getting done is not getting done? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Right now, as of right now, I don't know what's happened with the crew. If Bay St. Louis is saying, hey, you are gonna stay over here before you lose your
I
contract.
mean citywide now, because I'm gonna ask you what we're gonna do about it. Because if we're cutting it, and we need to subtract that from the contract.
Well, I want Poe to come up, because that's not what I was told.
Yeah.
He's doing he's in a sense, he's doing his cuts, but he's not doing his cuts.
Well, wait
Well,
now,
come on
wait,
back
now.
up.
Either he is or he ain't. We
Well,
can't
he
go
is,
both
he
ways.
is, but what I'm saying, what I'm telling you is this. He's doing the cuts of the road, but how he cuts it is no way of we can sit there and say he's actually cutting it or not. But what is actually finishing cutting, as what we would cut as a city, is how we would do it. We would make sure that we have tractors out there, the weed eaters out there, and the mowers are out there.
Let me ask you this, what's it matter if he cuts it with a tractor or with a weed eater? Do
Well,
we care if he cuts it with scissors?
But also,
I mean, as long as it
I
gets
really,
cut.
I really don't care how you cut it, but what I'm
long
saying
as it
is,
gets cut,
just
right?
as in the highway in front of Claiborne Hills, that grass right in front of that ditch is this tall.
Right.
Why
Well,
is
he
that not
should
being
cut it.
cut?
He should
If I
cut it,
sit
or weed
there-
eat it, or cut it, or whatever, I mean.
Yeah, but if
it
I
needs to be
say
done.
something as in, how come that's not being cut? That needs to be cut. That's not being cut.
So let me.
Why not?
Okay, I met with him, I'm gonna say, Monday a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I discussed with him that Monday evening. I said, Idlewood Park, Old Gainesville Road.
We're cutting Idlewood Park.
Hold on.
Park is not in the contract.
Right.
Hold up. Can I finish, please? Thank you. I was told, the man told me, and I quote, I was told not to worry about it.
It's not in the contract, Charlie.
Bo?
There's 3 parks in the contract. This one, that one in Middletown, and the one, I'm sorry, it's 4, and the one on highway up at, Waveland Avenue.
Bo, can you come to the podium next? I got a question for you. Now, we're being told that it's not to the contract, but that's not what you told me. You told me that everything is being cut to the contract.
As of last week, Shane, there was mowers in this area from south, actually from Waveland Avenue, they cut all the way up to Bourgeois, whatever, next street over Terrace, as of last week, middle of last week. Now, I didn't see any weed eaters, I seen tractors. That's the first time I seen tractors on this side of the track. They stay normally on the south side, I mean,
I
the
seen
north side.
tractors last week also,
Yes.
okay? But now, you saying, how many parks are in that contract?
This one,
That's one?
all right, the memorial, we consider that's a park.
Yeah.
You got the dog
Elwood
park. and-
Bourgeois?
Uh-huh, and then you have Waveland Avenue.
Well, why are we still cutting Elwood Bourgeois?
Have no idea on that one. That was Willie call.
I mean, here's my thing, all those are items that's supposed to be cut 22 times a year, correct?
Yes, sir.
Which is every,
Every 2 weeks.
but also in his contract, or in his schedule that he sent, you know, as you get further into the wintertime, those numbers reduce, so you should be getting more cuts during the summertime.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my thing is, I mean, are we documenting and getting in touch with him on his contract and saying that you gotta cut the park 22 times, this many between now and October, and then it reduces down?
Shane, I'm sorry, but if I may, Willie's texting me, he's watching the meeting, and he did tell us a few weeks ago that he and Jeffrey had to cut the park because of the snakes. They were worried about the dog park and snakes getting there and hurting a citizen or a little dog, so, or a child, so that's why.
I understand that.
Snakes.
And I guess the issue I have is I see, I ride around a lot, I see that he's cutting a lot of the places that are just easy pickings. He's cutting that, and the places that are really getting high are not getting touched. And that's, you can go cut Waveland Avenue 10 times, Claiborne Hill didn't get touched once in there in that 10 times. Just got, Old Gainesville Road cut since the contract started. I mean, it was over the top of this.
Right. Let me say this. Can I have my turn?
Please.
Okay. So let me just tell you this. If we're gonna do this the way we need to do this, we cannot, be complaining here at this meeting. I mean, it's okay if y'all talk about it for sure, but we need to go ahead and, I need to schedule a meeting with Bo and with Chris here, and we need to go over in detail what they think are the deficiencies are. And then I need to give it to him in writing and tell him he needs to correct it. And if he doesn't, then he's in breach of contract. But the truth about it is that text messages and back and forth doesn't help anything. It doesn't.
We have
So-
to respond to him in writing.
Right, we have to go ahead and tell him what his deficiencies are, if they are actually deficiencies under the contract.
And give him a chance to
Right.
correct them, I believe.
Exactly. So, and it's good that Chris is keeping up with this. I know he's really good about taking notes, because I've seen what he does in other respects. And so we can do this, but it's just not helpful to do it here. It's good to bring it up as a topic, but it's not gonna accomplish anything
Not gonna
unless we-
address those issues.
unless we tell him. And then if he doesn't correct, then you can go ahead and exercise your rights under the contract to cancel, if that's what you want to do.
All right, let me ask this one question.
Yeah.
Where is he cutting at this week?
He was south of the tracks. He was actually south of the tracks, everything from Sears, South Street.
This week. Last week he was down there on Sears, at South
Right,
Street.
this week, they're over here on the other side over, which I have not seen
Have you seen him this week?
on the other side over here, over by.
This
here.
week, Monday, cut the highway. They cut the highway Monday.
Well, I asked once before that he was to email every day informing us, or informing the city clerk as to where they were cutting every day. That never happened. Now, I would like for him to start emailing y'all and the city clerk. That way it can be forwarded to us, so we know where he's cutting. That's all I have to say about that.
So again, like Malcolm had said, we need to have a sit-down. Y'all write it down, put it in writing what is not being done.
Right.
So that we can address those issues the proper way. Right?
Yeah, and so basically, if you'll go ahead and just organize your notes, Chris and Bo, let's go ahead and get together this week. I know I've got one thing scheduled on Thursday, but it shouldn't take long, and so if we could go ahead and meet on Thursday and then talk about what kind of letter I need to compose to him, telling him what he's in violation of, if he's in violation of anything.
Right.
Now, and you know, we didn't really specify, like Shane said, we didn't tell him you need to cut it this way or that way. We didn't specify the method, so just because the city did it a particular way doesn't mean he has to do it the same. Right.
But we also
And I
have,
agree
but
with
we
that.
do have a
Right.
schedule that he gave us,
Right.
that this
Yes.
is the, he would cut this starting this day, and then,
Right.
and he went right on through the schedule.
Right,
So we
and
need to
those-
look at the schedule and see if he's following the schedule.
right.
That's
Those-
the main
Maybe it
thing.
starts the
Those are
first
mo-
of the month, he started that way, working that way.
And those are what they call milestones, and we can make sure that he's either meeting those milestones, and if he's not, then we go ahead and put him on notice, and he's gonna have to go ahead and pull tight, and if he doesn't, then you can take action, okay? I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about this here, but I'm just telling you that if we wanna do it the right way under the contract, we need to do it this way.
That's how we have to address it.
Right.
So, y'all got it?
I'll contact y'all tomorrow, we'll set up a time to meet. Thank you.
All right, did we vote 14 yet? No. All right, you're ready to vote 14? Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Burke, yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
I'll approve the document with the exception of Lobato Industries.
So you're gonna have to say no then, Charlie?
No.
Motion still passed. 15, Public Works
Can-
Director, Mr. Humphrey, to discuss Monroe and Carroll Streets.
Mayor, if you don't mind, can we skip 15 and
Yes.
go to
Yeah,
17,
you want-
please?
just come back to that?
Yeah, go to,
Okay.
go to 16.
All right. Motion to approve a service change request from TEC for the installation of 2 antenna extenders at Ground Zero Museum.
I'll make the motion.
Burke, seconds.
And this is for their internet, because their internet's real bad.
And they will be paying the bill, the museum board.
And the museum board will be paying the bill.
What bill will they be paying, Tammy?
The
$17.50 a
175.
month.
Okay.
The entire cost, right,
Yeah.
Ms. Birdie? Yes.
All right, we'll vote 16 then. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to recuse myself for the next couple.
All right,
So
now
we'll go to
jump-
we'll go to,
Back to 15 and 17.
15 and 17, yes.
Yeah, I'll go up after you.
Sorry?
You want to excuse yourself?
yeah.
I'll just recuse myself. I'll do them.
Can we just,
Okay.
I don't even know if we need 15.
Yeah, we can go straight to 17, huh?
Let's just go to
I mean,
You wanna combine those two?
well, it's discussion for 15, so.
Okay.
all right.
So can I have a motion?
Let the record reflect that Alderman LaFontaine is
second.
out of the room.
Motion to approve naming DNA Underground as best.
Wait, we're up at 15.
15 discussions
Yeah.
for 17.
Yeah.
Bo, you want to discuss Monroe and Carroll Street?
It's basically the same thing that happened on Hogan Street. Have a guy building off of Chris, and we have to get him sewer. So I propose that we come off of Carroll Street, which we found the manhole that's 7'2", and bring it down, I think it's 400 feet, and right on the opposite side of Chris, we put another manhole. So that would, you're looking at 5 lots that's buildable, and then if we ever try to expand, we can come down Chris and tie all that into that. You can go so far down Chris, run it back, then you can go back the other way towards Waveland Avenue and tie into that, because that manhole's 5 foot deep.
So this is to accommodate new house construction?
Yes.
So we're basically talking about 15 and 17 together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Correct.
Got a motion for.
All right, got a good motion to,
Now, this is not a budget item, so it would have to come out of reserves.
Can we take that infrastructure money?
Don't have it.
No, we're done with infrastructure money?
But we have it in reserves, and it's either gonna
Yeah,
be
we
in the
do.
budget
Yeah.
anyway or not, so
Yeah,
it's a
we do.
project has true economic impact for developing, well, not just this, but longevity of economic impact.
all right,
So we can
we have
take
a
out.
motion and a second on 17?
Wait.
Not one yet.
Burke moves.
I second.
Okay, go ahead, Jimmy, you got something else?
Budgetary wise, how would we take it out of reserves?
What is left in reserves, we're gonna need to make that amendment.
How long is this bid good for?
I think 30 days.
What is the number, and what do we have in reserves?
I think we have 180. That's the reserves from the extra FEMA we received. That's not our investment reserve.
Can-
Ron only put $350,000 in a reserve for our budget this year.
How much,
Your savings account is also a reserve account, it's just a
Right.
separate reserve account, so you have both of those
You would be
options,
pulling
yeah.
from your savings.
Yeah.
but not, I guess you call that investment, but not the one with, who's?
No,
Not the ARPA.
no,
No, not the ARPA,
no, the
the,
bank, the investment account we got.
trying to think who it's,
that we're
Trinity.
collecting interest
Trinity.
on. Trinity.
Trinity and our savings account are two different accounts.
Yep.
How much is in the savings?
I don't know offhand.
Because the investment is,
2.5,
but your savings is.
2.7 something last. I
yeah,
saw.
some 2.7
No, for Trinity.
Trinity.
That's Trinity.
for Trinity.
But how much is in the savings?
I don't know.
Because that's, understand that they just, obviously, having a sweep account of 300,000 makes sense because you're gonna get higher interest in a savings account. That's the money you can use because this is actually, it's not, it's a one-time expenditure instead of a payroll.
Right.
So, I don't know if we need to table this to go get it, but the bank account, the savings account should, I understand it's not budgeted in the thing because it wasn't thought of last August, but it needs to be done. So we need to figure out a way
It would
to,
just be part of the amendment.
Yeah.
think we, see how long it's hold for, get our amendment and include this in the amendment.
Kim, you're gonna know by the next meeting what we're gonna do about the amendment in the budget, right? You'll
Yes,
know,
I have the expense side as it sits now,
yeah,
but with all the changing, then I'll have to add this to the spreadsheet. I have it on the spreadsheet and can send out tomorrow.
right.
It's the income side because we over budgeted income also.
What? I guess that's a different discussion.
Yep.
So, I don't know whereabouts, Phil. We need to do this project, obviously, waiting for the budget amendment to get done. We need to include this in the budget amendment so we can get it paid for and get it done, period.
So your choices are, you can either do it tonight, and as she said, include the clause, amend the budget accordingly, or you can go ahead and wait 2 weeks when she's gonna have to answer the question anyway about where we stand as far as income. She'll have the projections about the income for the rest of the budget period, and then take it from there.
The savings of
I think that's what
Yeah.
we should do.
Yeah,
the savings account in the bank account right now has $1,323.27.
okay,
But that's not the one
that's not the
Yeah,
right,
that's not the Trinity.
yeah, it's not the right account. So those are your choices. You can either go ahead and include it, and then, Bo, I suppose if they authorize it tonight, they'll start work right away? Or will that be delayed?
We'd have to order the manhole, it takes about 6 weeks.
All right,
Okay.
then,
Why don't
can we
we,
just go table this?
why don't we do this, if you don't mind, because I think ultimately you're gonna approve this anyway. How much is the manhole approximate? 7,500, 10,000?
I don't know offhand.
Okay, but it's in that range, right?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and authorize them to go ahead and purchase the manhole, because we're gonna have to have it anyway.
Because that's gonna be the part that takes the
Yeah,
longest.
and it'll take a while to get that. And so by the time they get delivery on the manhole, you'll know the answer to the rest of the expenditure, okay? Because you gotta do it anyway, right?
You
Yes, sir.
said that was 10,000 annually?
Yeah,
I
something
can
like
give you the
that.
numbers once I get to the phone.
Yeah, I don't think it'll exceed 10,000. In fact, I think they're
So-
somewhere around 7,500 or 8,000, something like that.
So we're gonna change this number from 57?
If you don't mind an amendment, I would suggest to authorize the purchase of the
6,500
manhole.
for the manhole.
6,500 for manhole,
Yeah, how much is it?
6,500.
Okay, so I was over. To purchase the manhole not to exceed, let's say, $7,000, and then to table the rest of it until the next meeting.
Good with you?
Yeah,
Bo,
but-
is that the 4 foot by 6 foot? Is that what it says? 6,500?
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, let's vote 17 then. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you.
Shane,
I got a question before he comes back in. So does that mean that, that y'all gonna try to get some water and sewer over there? Understand that right? Did I understand that correct?
Yes,
Cause I'm the one building the house back there.
Right.
yes, sir. All right. Let the record reflect that Alderman LaFontaine is back in the meeting. And we're on 18, motion to approve invoice from Conditional Engineering for Jackson Marsh.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right, discussion on 18. Hearing none, we'll vote. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Burke, yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
19 on the agenda, motion to approve invoice from Conditional Engineering and Surveying in the amount of $9,866.
Burke moves.
I'll second.
All right, discussion on 19.
Yes. Just exactly what we're surveying here.
I'm not looking at the invoice.
He's got a breakdown of it.
Yeah, it's on the,
It was in the packet.
it's in the packet.
Charlie, the invoice is in the package, and if you look at it, most of it has to do with what he talks about is Waveland drainage, and so it's part of that drainage study that he's doing.
Last time I talked to him, I think a lot of it was dealing with also sizing.
Right.
Culverts and stuff, surveying for the sizing of the culverts or something.
Right.
Right, and also they did a little bit of video as well, but it's all listed there on the invoice. It's part of the package.
Yeah, 'cause it's,
Okay.
it shows culverts, video, and,
Right.
Yeah.
You got, Charlie, would you like to see it?
Ma'am?
I have the invoice, would you like to see it, sir?
No, let's go ahead and move on.
Okay.
All right, let's vote
I
19.
can look at it tomorrow.
All right, we'll vote 19. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
20, motion to approve work order number 22-002-004 from Conditional Engineering and Surveying. This is for GIS coordination work, not to exceed $2,500.
Burke moves.
Ward 2, second.
All right, discussion on 20. Hearing none, we'll vote. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
21, motion to approve request from Ground Zero Museum to purchase from Lowe's. Didn't you tell me to scratch that off, Tammy?
Well, Mr. Jim had come in today and said he was trying to get it donated, this shed, Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Is that
So
correct?
we're trying to get that, 2 sheds donated, one for Keep Waveland Beautiful and one for Ground Zero Museum.
So do we need to,
Whether or not he's going to do that, I don't know.
So
I
can-
haven't talked to Dave and Lowe's yet.
So if there's possibly get donated, can I just have a motion table?
yeah. Motion
I'll change
to
mine
table
to a
21.
table.
All right, have a motion and a second.
I got the second.
All right, we'll vote. 21 is 1. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you. 22, motion to consider approving and ratifying engagement letter with, those. For special account services to assist in preparation of the audit and authorize my signature there.
I'll move.
I'll second it.
All right, discussion on 22.
Yeah, the engagement letter, and I understand what the motion says is for special accounting service to assist preparation of audit. But the engagement letter they sent over had, and maybe, I guess, I can tell you, I generally, when we're doing an audit, I do not read them, but it speaks of,
It's for reconciliation of the payroll and employment tax returns for the past 3 years, and to go ahead and to reconcile unemployment returns as well. It's all part of one big project.
but that's not necessarily preparation of the audit. It would be.
No,
We have to do that to be able
Right.
to complete the audit,
that's right.
according to Kim.
So for special accounting services to
You want to
assist.
explain anybody? No?
Yes, for our 2020 audit, they didn't put it as a finding 3 years, the unemployment and our payroll and our taxes and brought up to date.
So we just,
That was the agreement we made with them.
and just so that we can keep Kim focused on what she's supposed to do, which is get the budget
The
ready
budget.
for the next year, this is the accountant that we brought in to make sure they go back and check these things, just to make sure they're all
Yep.
reconciled and match up.
Yeah, because if I would have had to stop and reconcile 3 years of payroll and our taxes and our unemployment, I wouldn't be able to work on the budget at all.
So it is to
Thank you.
assist in to,
Reconcile payroll.
no, the findings, to reconcile the findings of the audit, correct?
Well, yes, because they were never, it was never reconciled for the 19 and 20.
But it's to address the findings in the audit,
Yeah.
necessarily the actual physically doing of the audit.
Yeah, it's a requirement of the external auditors that they're asking us to do this to make sure that everything matches
I guess
up.
my,
Yeah.
just my issue was the motion and the letter, just in my head, did not match. Maybe I'm
Right.
just overreading the letter, but,
Right.
engagement letter, but
Well, the first paragraph defines what the scope of work is, and maybe I didn't do a good job of defining it on the agenda item. Do you want to amend that somehow? I was, I guess, not as specific as I could have been. Do you want to make it more specific? Is that what you're saying?
I mean,
You want to take engagement off and just, hire 'em?
no, it's
No.
gonna be, you have,
Why don't we do this, Jeremy, if you don't mind, where it says special accounting services to include reconciliation of payroll employment tax returns for 2019, 2020, and 2021, and related matters, because it also has to do with the unemployment too. Is that okay?
that would be better. I think
Alright.
it makes it clear on the motion.
That makes more
And
sense.
payroll itself.
Okay, yes.
That makes more sense.
Okay, with that revision, can we move forward?
If they were,
Okay.
Have a motion and a second?
yes,
All right, we'll vote 22 then. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
yes,
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion to increase the dumpster pickup at the lighthouse 2 times a week at a cost of $150
I'll
per
move.
week.
second,
Because it is getting filled up.
What size
Two.
dumpster is that?
is it eight?
It's a 4 yard,
Yeah,
it's one
cause the
small one.
enclosure wasn't that big,
Yeah,
it's 4 yards.
And,
Yeah.
is it completely full every week? Or
they're
can we,
filling it up.
would it be cheaper for us to get a bigger dumpster?
Well, the problem is where you gonna put it at?
Did
Yeah,
you
the
increase
roads-
the
Won't
size?
fit inside of there?
Did you increase that size already?
Okay.
Didn't they expand that out? to-
No, we just what we had already.
Yeah.
I know they had it marked out to expand it.
Catherine did ask them if we could do the 2 times per week during the summer months and then drop down in the winter months, but I'm not sure what she thought about
Yeah.
that.
No, I think you,
Okay. I mean, if we can't get a larger dumpster than that, I'd say go with.
Well, can we ask what days we can have it dumped?
Friday and Monday?
Friday and Monday?
Friday, Monday, definitely.
All right, y'all ready to vote 23? Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes,
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
All right, motion consider termination of employment of Mr. Brendan Robinson for misconduct as recommended by his supervisor, Mr. Bo Humphrey.
Burke moves,
I'll second.
All right, discussion on 24. Hearing none, we'll vote. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
yes,
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Attorney comments?
Yeah, just an update. We were talking about signage out on Highway 90. I've been in contact with Mr. Haydell, who has the Sleep King.
Okay.
He was able to go ahead and sell his other property that's over in Gulfport or Biloxi, wherever, and he received his funds from that closing. So he's moving forward to do the work on his sign out in front of the Sleep King. And he sent me a copy of his check that he received, so he seems to be acting in good faith, as he said he would, and I'll continue to monitor that. The other is that we received some quotes, Josh, and you can help me on this one, for the property to demo at, was it Sauer Street?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and we thought maybe we could do better on the pricing on that, so I'm gonna try to bring that back up at the, this is for demo of a derelict structure at the next meeting. We're gonna try to see if we can possibly go one more time and see if we can get any better quotes, and whatever we get, we'll go forward with at the next meeting. And then on Thursday, I think it is this week, Josh, you're doing your inspection for code violations at Oak Park?
Yep.
Okay, and you'll have a report ready sometime after that? It's gonna be a big report, I know.
It's gonna be a big inspection.
Yeah, and you're gonna have the assistance of the fire department?
Yes.
And then on another matter, we have 2 code violation cases coming up in city court. And that's on Mr. Lacoste and the other one on next door to the, what's it called, the steak?
Smoke and Ale?
Smoke and Ale,
Yeah.
yeah, on the west side of that. And that's coming up on what date?
Smoke and Ale is an arraignment on the 11th.
Right.
And then we have the other one continued to September 15th.
But it's not
Yes.
smoke and ale.
No,
the
it's
property-
next to it.
it's
No,
the
no,
property
it's
adjacent.
I can't think of the owner's name right now, but it's.
Toward the county.
Just to tell
Yeah.
you, it's that building, it's a.
It's a residential home.
Yeah, it's a residential home, but the violation is someone's living in their storage building, basically what it amounts to, right?
There's a bunch of junk and debris.
And there's junk in the yard. We actually had Mr. Lacoste's case set for the 11th, but because of some other conflicts, we had to move that to the September the 15th date. We did that recently. So, but anyway, we're moving forward on those things, just to let you know. Other than that, we're gonna be going out this week, hopefully with an advertisement for RFQs on engineering services for both the Go Mesa projects and the ARPA projects that we have to meet public procurement laws. And of course, that'll include the engineering for the marina.
Yep.
And we got our application in on time on June 30 for a Go Mesa grant. We hope we'll be successful on that next year, and it's basically for water and sewer in the unimproved area that y'all, the mayor calls it the Center City. What's that area?
That's Center City, Hogan Street.
Hogan and all those areas that you know about that we don't have water and sewer currently. And so we'll know about that coming up. It'll come to the legislature in March of next year, but we had to get it in on time, and we did. So hopefully we'll have some good success with that. We've not previously received big funding on Go Mesa. Although we did have great success with the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund, as you know.
Entitlements too.
Yes. And other than that, unless you have questions for me, that's my report.
I guess my biggest, and I guess you weren't here during it, we need to get the, whatever needs to be done for the Veteran Memorial advertisement.
Yes, I'm sorry, I did not get to that. I'm still playing catch-up from being out sick that week with COVID. I did want to tell you this, though, that Tammy and I have been working closely with the executive committee for both the Democratic and the Republican Party in preparation for the qualifying deadline for the candidates, which is coming up August the 5th, Tammy?
Yes, sir, this Friday.
Right,
5
and
p.m.
so we're getting, gonna have some meetings probably next week with the Republican Party. So far, only one candidate has qualified as a Democrat, and so if no others qualify, then it will not be necessary to have a Democratic primary. But of course, as y'all know, there will be a Republican primary because we have quite a few candidates in that race. Tammy's done a lot of work to get ready for this, and big help, and so has the executive committee members.
I couldn't do it without you.
Well,
That sounds strange. Tammy done a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Anyway, so there we are, okay?
Yeah, everything else?
Just one other thing on budget stuff. So we're gonna try to have a meeting this week or next week?
The plan was to go ahead and do it next week. I think Kim's gonna be finished. She's done the expense side, and now she's just trying to make sure that the income side is clear, so she can both tell you where you stand and where you're projected to be at the end of the budget year. And I think she'll be done by the end of this week. Other good news, we feel like we're within possibly 2 weeks of getting our final audit on the 2020 year, which has been a big push. And I give both Kim, Pamela Fontaine, Catherine Core, and Tammy and Kylie a lot of kudos for all the work that they've done to help us get there. And of course, we'll launch into the 2021 audit right behind that, and hopefully have that done ambitiously by the end of December of this year.
Reasonable,
Yeah, so, anyway, we'll hope to have something ready. They're in what they call the second review. They've done the first draft of the audit, and we'll be in second review coming up this week and next. And so hopefully we'll be presenting at the meeting, second meeting of August if we're lucky. And if not, we may have to call a special meeting to get it approved right away. Okay?
With the budget
Yeah.
amendment, though, to
And
make
the-
us.
The
to go ahead
budget
and get us
amendment,
Through the
next
fiscal
week.
year.
yeah.
We could have that next week.
Yeah, we can have
We're
that.
not waiting till the end of the month to have that.
No,
correct?
no, no.
During that budget amendment, we will get all of our reserve fund balances,
Everything will be clear to you, yes.
Okay.
And then we have to actually do a formal budget amendment during the month of August, but the intent is for Kim to do an explanation meeting first before we actually do that process.
All right, we're good?
Got a hand in the back.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Yep.
Wait, man.
Huh?
Somebody back there.
I'm sorry, I can't see it. Oh, hey, Mr. Brown.
Malcolm, you brought up blighted properties.
Yes, sir.
I have a question concerning Dora Land. The address is 624 Highway 90.
Hang on just a minute, Mr. Bryan, let me write this down. Just trying to keep a list of my to-do
Dora
list.
Land.
Yeah.
which one is it?
You got it on your list? Okay.
Doorland?
The
Dora, D-O-R-A.
Give me the address again, Mr. Bryan.
The address is 624 Highway 90.
All
It's
right, I
over
have it.
by the water tower on Highway 90.
Okay, okay.
All right, now, there's individual storage behind the building that's on Highway 90. That building has been boarded up the 11 years I've been here, and it's still deteriorating. It was on the blighted property list. It was addressed here year and a half ago.
Okay,
Nothing's happened with the building facing Highway 90, and it's continuing to deteriorate.
okay. Josh, you know what he's talking about? All right. So would you take a couple pictures for me and send it to me so I'll know what we're talking about?
Yeah, we'll do that tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bryan.
We have a motion to adjourn. Have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we'll vote that. Ward 1, Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ward 2, Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Ward 3, Mr. LaFontaine.
Yes.
And Ward 4, Mr. Piazza.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, good.
Is there gonna be a list of all candidates for all positions?
Yes, I'll have it on. In fact, I have a running list going right now. He's a vegetarian.
I'm glad to see it.
Chicken.
Killing me.